I have therefore come to the decision to resign.
South Africa reacts to Jacob Zuma's resignation. A new dawn as the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to be sworn in as the country's new head of state. 7 suspects arrested following an operation on Gupta-linked properties expected to appear in a Bloemfontein court this morning. Very good morning to you. Welcome to Newsroom. A very happy Thursday to you. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Shante Yankees, of course, coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. A lot coming up between now and 12 p.m., including the latest on the reaction as President Jacob Zuma has resigned, as well as your views and news from the continent and the world over. Well, in your top story. Your lead story at 9 o'clock, former President Jacob Zuma has avoided a motion of no confidence in Parliament by resigning as head of state last night. Zuma is the second consecutive ANC president to resign as head of state after former President Thabo Mbeki stepped down in 2008. Zuma barely made the 48-hour deadline set by the ANC for him to resign, talking to the podium at the Union Buildings in Pretoria for the last time as head of state.
I've served in my capacity as President of the Republic of South Africa within the prism of our much acclaimed Constitution, whose foundational values are fully subscribed to. I understand fully that while I serve at the pleasure of my party, the ANC, the door through which I officially came to serve the people of South Africa is the National Assembly, without which no political party can impose its candidate on the electorate, no matter how popular. This constitutional line between party and state is often forgotten in the usual business of party political contestations. As we fight our own battles in the corridors of political power and sometimes serving the very interests of the oppressors of yesterday, who joyfully celebrate as we lynch one another, we often forget the citizens on whose behalf we create a better life. We tend to place the political party above the supreme law of the country, which is the rule book of the country's political engagement. I do not make this reference because I am above reproach, nor do I wish to proclaim that in understanding my political responsibilities, I have been the epitome of perfection. If truth be told, none of us are. It is now public knowledge that the National Executive Committee of the ANC resolved to recall me as the President of the Republic. The ANC should never be divided in my name. I have therefore come to the decision to resign as President of the Republic with immediate effect.
Well, the former president said he had not been afraid to lose his presidential perks if he was removed through impeachment. He also said he did not fear losing a vote of no confidence.
I respect the prescripts of the Constitution and its consequences on how we enter, stay in, and exit political office and government. There has been much speculation about how the President of the Republic should exit his or her office. Make no mistake, no leader should stay beyond the time determined by the people they serve. Most importantly, no leader should seek an easy way out simply because they could not face life at the end of their term without the perks that come with their political office. I do not fear exiting political office. However, I have only asked my party to articulate my transgressions, and the reason for its immediate instruction that I vacate office.
Well, meanwhile, officials in Parliament are reported to be preparing for the swearing-in of the new President of the Republic today. Chief Justice Mogoeng has reportedly told the National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete that he will not be available tomorrow to preside over the swearing-in of the President. The swearing-in of the new President is now expected to take place during the special sitting this afternoon. Chief Justice spokesperson Nathi Ncube says Mogoeng will officiate the ceremony this afternoon. Of course, a reaction has come from far and wide of the news to South Africa's third democratically elected President Jacob Zuma and his resignation. Simpiwe Makanya is in the Durban city centre covering developments there. Very good morning to you, Simpiwe. Take us through the reaction on the ground upon receiving the news of President Jacob Zuma's resignation in KZN.
Well, thank you very much and good morning to you in the studio and from us here. I'm standing outside Dr. Pixlika Isaka Seme House, the headquarters of the ANC in the province. We have been crisscrossing the Durban city trying to solicit views from different community members, trying to solicit views from ordinary South Africans about their reaction following President Jacob Zuma's announcement yesterday that he's stepping down as the president of the country. And of course, in KZN, President Jacob Zuma's support was actually huge. He enjoyed a lot of support from ordinary people and as well as members of the ANC on the ground. And with me now, I'm joined by the Provincial Secretary General of the ANC Youth League in the province, Thandukolo Sabelo, who is going to take us through his reaction following President Jacob Zuma's announcement. Babu Sabelo, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
Let's look at the decision by the NEC of recalling President Jacob Zuma. In terms of the party and going forward, what does it assist in building unity within the party?
First and foremost, what we must say as the ANC Youth League in KwaZulu-Natal is that the NEC of the ANC is the highest decision-making body of the African National Congress in between conferences. It is at liberty to take any decision about the future of South Africa. And it has indeed taken a decision about the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma. And as the ANC Youth League in KwaZulu-Natal, we accept and we respect the decision taken by the African National Congress. You speak about unity. definitely all members of the African National Congress must work towards unity. Obviously, there will be, in certain sections of the population of South Africa, people who might be unhappy with that decision. But they must be consoled by the fact that President Zuma, in his resignation and in his address to the nation last night, did speak about the urgent matter of unity in the African National Congress and the people of South Africa. And it did encourage us, who are members of the ANC and who have been supporting him as the president of the ANC, to say, let us all now unite and rally behind the elected leadership of the ANC in Nasrec in 2017. So we do support, and we are committed as the ANC Youth League to building unity and to supporting the leadership of the African National Congress. And we will ensure, we will go to every corner of our province, speaking to the people of our province and speaking to them about unity, and obviously making them understand the decision taken by the National Executive Committee of the ANC.
One of the things he said during his resignation yesterday was the fact that he has done nothing wrong. Nothing was given to him as reasons, basically, of saying, Mr. President, you have done this and therefore we are recalling you as the NEC. Do you feel that the president has done nothing wrong?
Well, what we can say is that we await the decision of the ANC and the reasons by the NEC. I'm sure you are aware that the National Executive Committee will be visiting each and every region this coming weekend. So we, as members of the ANC and members of the ANC Youth League, will be waiting patiently for the leadership of the African National Congress to come and brief us and give us reasons as to why the president has been recalled. We are quite confident that the National Executive Committee does have reasons why they've decided to recall the president of the ANC.
Looking at his tenure as the president of the country from 2009 until now, what would you say were some of his shortcomings or failures?
Well, there has been a lot of challenges in President Zuma's reign. Obviously, he is human. Just like any other president of the Republic in the past, there were mistakes that were committed during his service. He himself said it in his address yesterday, that yes, there has been some mistakes, and yes, there has been some shortcomings. What we can say is that there are matters as the youth that we did feel could have been accelerated. The representation of the youth, while there was a lot of strides made by the administration of President Zuma to ensure the representation of the youth, but we do believe that more could have been done. And youth development. There has been a lot of work being done by municipalities, provinces and the national government to deal with youth unemployment and youth development in particular. But we do feel that a lot more could have been done by this administration. But we're also certain and confident that the new administration will work hell of a lot better in ensuring that there is youth development, and that the issue of jobs, which is the issue that is most concerning to most young people in the country, will be addressed by the new president and the new executive that will obviously take over from President Zuma now.
All right. Mr. Sabela, thank you very much for your time. Due to time constraints, this is where we'll have to leave it for now. But let me hand over to my colleague in Johannesburg, Criselda Lewis.
Well, thank you very much, Simpiwe and Shante. Well, we've been crisscrossing Johannesburg since very early this morning, trying to catch many people going to work and school to get their reaction on President Jacob Zuma's much publicized resignation yesterday. Certainly the world's media, South Africans, have been beamed to their television screens last night, waiting to hear on what President Jacob Zuma would say. The word was officially out just shortly before midnight that he is no longer the president of South Africa. We spoke to quite a lot of people this morning, Shante, a lot of mixed reaction. Some are saying it's a good thing for President Jacob Zuma to go. There were too many shenanigans that were surrounding his presidency, and some also saying that he should have been allowed to finish his term of office. Let's chat now to someone who I did not have a chance to speak to this morning. Young people, certainly they're the ones who would be able to take this country forward. They're the future of this country. Thank you so much for joining us so early this morning. Let me get your reaction, first of all, to the resignation of President Jacob Zuma. As a young person, your feeling and what your expectations are going forward.
I don't really want to say I'm excited about it, because I don't want to be too excited before I see how Cyril Ramaphosa is going to run it. But I just hope to see, I want to see if he's going to carry out the promise that Jacob Zuma made to us, that we're going to get free education. So that's just what I'm looking forward to seeing. I don't really want to say I'm excited, but yeah.
I don't really want to jump the gun before he's actually sworn in, but we know he is going to be sworn in. And what would you as young people, a lot of emphasis has been put on education, but what more would you like to see as young people? I know the incoming president's in-tray is already quite full. There's a lot of expectation. Everybody wants this and that. But as young people, education is key for you. What particular aspect of education would you want that focus to be on? Access, of course, one of them, and what else in inclusive to that?
I hope, because most of the people go to school but end up unemployed. So maybe if we could have a system or something that was put in place to assure us not maybe of 100% of employment, but maybe to assist us in getting employment after that, it would be really cool.
I think that's, she says that will be very cool. Thank you very much. I think that's a good point to make, given that access to education is still a challenge in South Africa. And even if you do get access to education, you're not guaranteed a job. But this man thinks that this is just politics. Exactly. You say this is just politics. Why do you say that? Let me get your reaction, first of all, to President Jacob Zuma's resignation, and why you think this is all just politics.
Ahmadal, it's politics, Politics are politics, They will remove Ramaphosa next time someone must be a president, They're going to use the same policies as much as they did with Meki, they did with Zuma, It's going to be the same system with Ramaphosa as well, let's say Ramaphosa, he's a president currently. The rent can get stronger, but the problem is the petrol can go down, but the poor will remain poor. Because, for example, when the petrol goes down, the tax is supposed to go down, the prices has to drop. But that will never happen. The only thing that will happen is that the prices will keep on increasing. So still... Don't
you have a small hope as a young person that perhaps this could be a signal for better things to come?
Well, it will be very amazing to see prices dropping from the taxi rank. That would be nice. That's when I'll get hope. Okay, there's hope in South Africa,
Okay, thank you so much. Right. Shante, always very exciting speaking to young people, and I often use the language that they use, smolanyana, and then he called me something like sister or something like that. But anyway, lots of enthusiasm, I guess, on the streets of Johannesburg where we've been crossing from, where people are saying they're really hoping for a positive change, but certainly saying you cannot celebrate the demise of Jacob Zuma. You have to also take into account the sacrifices that he made in the liberation towards the struggle for freedom in this country. But we'll try and bring you much more reaction as we move to different locations here in Johannesburg to get those diverse views from South Africans. Back to you.
Definitely. Thank you very much for that. Chris Lewis on the ground getting the reactions upon President Jacob Zuma's resignation last night. Well, continuing with the reactions on that resignation of President Jacob Zuma, we are now joined in studio by the ANC Veterans League's President, Dr. Snuki Zikalala, and political analyst Professor Stephen Friedman. Very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We thank you very much for your time and your patience as we deal with the reactions on the ground, Professor. I'm going to firstly start with you. What essentially was your reaction to President Jacob Zuma's resignation?
Well, of course, the issue was that either way, Mr. Zuma would no longer have been president by this evening. So the question of whether he resigned or whether he was voted out of office by Parliament didn't really matter. Although, of course, what he's managed to avoid now, which I think is probably his interest, is the embarrassment of being voted out of office by your own party. So I think the decision he took is probably more important for Mr. Zuma than it is for the country. The country was going to have a new president in the next day or so, whatever happened. But Mr. Zuma has, I think, spared himself a certain amount of embarrassment by deciding to do what he did last night.
Dr. Zikalala, your view, your reaction?
Well, as Veterans League, we're very happy that our president came back to his normal senses, that he should heed the call by the national executive that a deployee of the ANC has been recalled, because it was going to be embarrassing that today there's a vote of no confidence sponsored by EFF and other opposition parties and ANC supporting it. And so that was going to humiliate him and, of course, humiliate the party. And so we are really happy that he decided that he should resign on his own accord, a thing that should have happened a week ago. And so he was playing a game he was playing games with us. But fortunately, he has decided that he's resigning, and I think the country should move forward. All that we're more interested in is that we should build a very strong ANC, a very confident country, that the economy must grow and unemployment must grow. We should give President Cyril Ramaphosa a chance to run the country.
In an exclusive interview held yesterday with SABC, President Jacob Zuma said that his axing was baseless. What do you make of that?
No, he's not telling. He's very economic with the truth. We told him firstly that the economy is run down completely. The parastatals are in a mess. There's mass unemployment in the country. We told him that we gave him we said to him there's going to be a vote of no confidence and there's going to be impeachment. And so for him to avoid embarrassing the ANC, for him not to be humiliated, the best thing is to resign. But he was recalcitrant. He was refusing to do that. He was saying that, I don't know, what have I done? What more could we have said? What we feared as the National Executive Committee was that if the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo Commission of Judicial Commission of Inquiry goes ahead, and he's been called as a witness, being head of state, it means that the ANC was going to be a witness. It means that the whole focus was going to be on him. That was going to damage our brand, the brand of the ANC. And when we're moving towards 2019 elections, we don't want to lose the elections. We don't want the brand of the ANC to be damaged again. And so it was important for him to step down so that we move on and mobilize society and ensure that the country is united and ensure that investments coming into the country, ensure that young people are unemployed, get jobs. That's what we're interested in and nothing else.
Professor, where to now for the ANC? Where to now for the country?
Well, certainly the priority for the ANC is to win back the trust of voters. Over the last 8 years or so, the ANC has lost 20% of its vote. That's a huge decline. Obviously, the ANC believes, and I think that it's correct, that many of those voters are really ANC people who are quite prepared to come back if the ANC wins back trust. The ANC has got to show that it is concerned about grassroots voters. It started over the last month, and that is positive for the country, by dealing with those issues which are in the insider space, if I can talk about it like that, what the media talk about, what the commentators talk about, the Zondo Commission, the question of the Eskom board, the raids on the Estina dairy farm. These are all very important. But if the ANC does not, in the next 18 months, go down to grassroots voters and win back their trust, then the ANC may find that it still has a difficulty. As far as the country is concerned, what we need to do here is a similar process. We need to start regaining trust in our institutions. A lot of damage has been done over the last few years. There's a lot of cynicism in the country. It's good if citizens don't trust politicians to a certain extent, but it's a very serious problem if citizens start saying, no, the system doesn't work. So I think that the challenge of the new government is A, to win back confidence in the ANC, but far more importantly, to win back confidence in South African democracy. And if they can do that over the next 18 months, then I think the country will be in far better shape than it is now.
And talking of consumer votes and taking it back to the grassroots, we do know that KZN to some extent is an ANC stronghold, and the support and the leadership has grown under Jacob Zuma, specifically with the supporters in the ANC. What does this now mean for the stronghold in KZN?
No, for us, it's positive. It's positive for us because the ANC, what was decided at the NEC is that ANC leadership must go down to KZN, to go to all the provinces and explain why they recall. And of course, immediately when you tell our people, especially members of the ANC, is that the ANC has declined, number one. Number two, that ANC is in crisis. Number three is that we want to rebuild the ANC. We want to win back the confidence of society that should trust the ANC. Definitely our people accept that. And so also when you look at the state capture itself, state capture is not a small thing. It has huge implication on this country and on the ANC itself. If you explain that to society, definitely even people in KwaZulu-Natal, they'll believe us, because these are facts. These are bare facts. These are not manufactured facts. They'll know very well that there's mass unemployment even in KZN. There's mass corruption even in KZN. You look at Mgeni board itself, and so people immediately, if you say since 2009, this is what has been happening under his administration. And to build back this country and get the confidence of society is very, very important for us as ANC. And of course, to retain power, because it's all about power. And so we can't allow one person to destroy the legacy of this organization of ours and to destroy the country itself.
Now, gauging reactions from the opposition parties, some members, specifically in COPE, have come forward saying that they would want an entirely new parliamentary process to take forward and not necessarily have someone already in parliament take over as president, i.e. Cyril Ramaphosa. Your views on that?
Look, what the opposition is saying is that they want parliament dissolved. The reason they want parliament dissolved is precisely because they're about to lose their greatest asset. The greatest asset over the last few years has been Mr. Zuma.
Yeah.
No, it's been Mr. Zuma. And they're about to lose that asset. They are desperately keen to have an election as soon as possible so that Mr. Zuma is still fresh in the mind of South African voters. And and it's politics, and I'm afraid all the other explanations don't count. They're not going to get it, and the reason they're not going to get it is that the way in which a democratic system works is that you need a majority of votes to get something through. It's not in the ANC's interest to have an election now. The ANC, as Dr. Zikalala and others are saying, the ANC has to rebuild trust, it has to rebuild confidence, and the ANC wants a period to do that. So the reality is that what the opposition wants is not going to happen. The general election will happen in 2019. It's not going to happen now.
Dr. Zikalala, let's talk about the issue of the alignment of the ANC conference and the country's national elections. How do you think that the ANC should actually handle this going forward?
Well, the ANC has started its campaign. We've started our campaign in terms of building confidence amongst the masses. We have said that we are dealing with corruption. We have seen what the Hawks are doing. We're saying that all parastatals have to be restructured. We are saying that the economy must start ticking. We're building confidence amongst investors. And so I think in that way, once you create stability within the country itself, once you create stability amongst investors, once you create stability, especially in society, and we as ANC, we are saying we're prepared to say we're prepared to self-correct. We have to self-correct and say to society, go back to society and say, we apologize, we've made mistakes. We want you to give us another chance to govern on your behalf. Definitely society will pardon us. As long as society sees that those who are responsible for this anarchy, for this mass looting, are taken behind bars. And it should happen, and it should happen soon.
Professor, is Cyril Ramaphosa the man for this job? Or has, for the lack of a better word, the dislike of President Jacob Zuma just been so strong that, you know, South Africans and the people just wanted him out?
I think South Africans really, and I read this the other day, I think South Africans really need to get over this obsession with particular individuals. Okay. Cyril Ramaphosa is president of the ANC. He will soon be president of the country. He doesn't run things on his own. He's part of a group of people. He's part of he's got allies, etc. The question is not Cyril Ramaphosa. The question is, will the new leadership of the ANC, which yes is led by Cyril Ramaphosa, rise to the challenges that we're talking at the moment? People are not going to vote for the ANC in 2019 simply because Cyril Ramaphosa has replaced Jacob Zuma. They will vote for the ANC in 2019 if the kind of issues that Dr. Zikalala is talking about are actually addressed. If they feel, to me it goes beyond, yes, it is important to put behind bars people who've done wrong, but I think it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that because it means reaching out to millions of South Africans who are excluded from the economy and saying to them, we have a plan, we want to bring you into the economy, we want you to be part of South Africa's economy, and we want you to be productive citizens. I think if the ANC can show that it's listening to people at the grassroots, the question of whether individual X or individual Y is president of the country is secondary. The issue is, what is the government doing about the problems of real South Africans?
Your comment, Doctor?
Yeah, well, I fully agree with what Professor Stephen Friedman is saying. What is important for us as ANC is to unite society, is to unite ANC, and to make sure that we win back the lost moral ground that we had before. And definitely, with the leadership of Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, we will be able to convince society that the ANC is on its renewal path.
Definitely. Thank you very much for joining us both this morning. Thank you very much for your time and patience once again. Of course, ANC Veterans League President Dr. Snoopy Zikalala and political analyst Professor Stephen Friedman unpacking the resignation of President Jacob Zuma, as well as a prelude into what we can expect and the continuing reactions that we've been getting throughout the country this morning. And continuing with those reactions from ordinary South Africans, we have been crossing to our reporters in various parts of the country, giving us live updates as to what ordinary South Africans on the ground have been responding to the resignation of President Jacob Zuma and a way forward. Joining us now is reporter Sibongile Mkani Bolweni, who is in Mbombela in Mpumalanga. A very good morning to you. Can you take us through the reaction on the ground in Mpumalanga this morning?
Morning, yes, we are at the bus terminus in Nelspruit CBD. We've been talking to people here, some saying they have welcomed Jacob Zuma's departure from office and they are looking forward to Cyril Ramaphosa's tenure as president. They are stressing the issue of unemployment. They want employment, especially for the youth. But also there is that thing of fake news that we've been having. Right now there's a picture circulating on social media of a picture of President Jacob Zuma with the background of the CCMA. We don't know if it's authentic or not, but just to talk on that, on the issue of fake news, there's a guy here who didn't believe that the president has indeed resigned. Just tell us how you found out.
I found out through social media this morning. Unfortunately, last night I was watching the football, so I wasn't following TV. But yeah, this morning I saw it on social media.
When you saw it, what did you think?
I thought it was fake. In the beginning I thought it was fake, but obviously after a little bit of research I realized it's true, which I think is a good thing that he's left. I think we're moving forward in the right direction.
Thank you. Just Umama, we have Umama. Mama has a different view about President Zuma's departure from office. Mama, bowuthi wena uzizwa njani ngale nto kaMongameli?
Mina ngitive kahle. Ayise right. What about kusuka wena kuwe kufuna kutamina? Ene mlungu asimfuna. Solo sifuna umuntu lomnyama. Mlungu ane apartheid, mkhumbulo. Mucabanga lento. Une apartheid umuntu lomlungu. Mara umuntu lomnyama is good.
So uthi ubaba uZuma bamsusile ngoba
vele bamkhulumela manga ngithi urongo uyende lokhu uyendeni. Akusinjalo. Angithi nami ngifuna indzawo ngifuna kudla. Akangene adle nalo angenaka mara angena into leti kahle angayendi into leti ngasi right.
We have Umama there telling us that she does not agree with President being ousted or his resignation. She feels that he hasn't done anything wrong and that she doesn't want a white person to be president. She wants another black person to take over, and that there are lies being peddled against President Zuma. We're just crossing over now to the guys who are selling vegetables across the street just to hear their views. They've been vocal. Puti wena uthini ngokuhamba President?
President, yes, is the right, but I think the good Zuma bekumunda hlete kahle esitulweni but esikhathi manje asazi ukuthi kahle kahle la uzongena kwamanje usiphatheleni ngajabulela ukuthi la ngena kwamanje asiphathele into le serious ngaphandle kwaZuma.
Aniphathele ini kahle kahle?
Asiphathele impilo le fresh ngaphandle kwaZuma. Zuma bese abeka siphethe right but beke something asihlubeta ngayo empilweni.
Bekanihlukumeta ngani?
Zuma Zuma beka umuntu lokathi aphethe abantu but labanye abantu kuthi abe unfocus kalabanye abantu empilweni manje akusinguye ama fence akhe.
He's saying that he welcomes Zuma's departure and hopes the new leadership will lead better than him because he had favoritism and made sure that his people benefited. We have other people who have come over. Buti wena uthini ngokuhamba ka president?
Esijabulile vele kuhamba kwaZuma vele esijabule kakhulu bekahlupha kakhulu uyisene mathuba emnotho Zuma.
He's saying he's also happy that Zuma has left because the economy had suffered in his hands and they are hoping that the economy will be better. Wena mama uthini?
mina ngithi yebo wende kahle ukuthi ehle ngoba bese kunemsindo kakhulu but yena bekuyi president le right lesiphethe kahle mathuba emsebenzi amosheka kumbheki sengoba kungene yena sekuthiwa ngizuma bathatha Tono Tambheki batithathe batifake kuZuma Zuma beka right lokhu aphumile i-radical economic transformation siyayifuna Cyril Ramaphosa akabe sure ukuthi uyayifaka siyayifuna.
She is basically saying that Zuma was the right president. He fell for Mbeki's sins. Unemployment dropped during Mbeki, and it was not Zuma's fault. He inherited that from President Mbeki's administration, and that now Cyril Ramaphosa must make sure that everything runs smoothly. Just one more person, Nina Putinitini. Nifuna wenze again, manje.
Sifuna evile South Africa liphumelele kutshintshe itinto yonke le bayenda uZuma kosele kubana kutshintsha njengoba aphumile.
Wenzeni uZuma?
Bathi uyende corruption lokhu beyakwenda lokhu nalokhu kwavela bekungase right eIsrael kujabula ngalokho.
Yes, good.
Thing is, I think Cyril Ramaphosa angaenda better because already unemali this guy and can create more opportunities because he has a lot of investors. So according to Zuma, allegations of and stuff like that. So many people will have a chance to believe anymore. So I think Ramaphosa will do better.
Okay, he's basically saying the same thing. Sentiment is the same. They are glad he's gone, and they are hoping that Ramaphosa will change. Ramaphosa investment, he must bring investment, and that there was no trust left in Zuma. Mama Wenutin.
Sibonge kakhulu ngokwehla kaMsholozi ngoba Msholozi besibekela ithemba kuye nje abantu base South Africa wathatha umbuso wamixa tuwe magupta siyacela ukuthi abantu bahambe bovotela iANC Cyril siphinze simnike ichance mhlambe yena angeke afane naZuma abantwana abasebenzi akunatikolo iSouth Africa ibiyela down bahlupheka Msholozi. He must go.
Yeah. Same sentiment. Zuma must go. She's basically saying he took everything and handed it over to the Guptas, and that they are hoping that Cyril Ramaphosa will change things and fix things. And she's urging people to go back 2019 elections and vote for the ANC.
Thank you very much, Simongile Molweni, taking us through some of the live updates in Mbombela, in Mpumalanga, and engaging the views from ordinary South Africans on the reaction of President Jacob Zuma resigning. For now, though, let's take a short break here on SABC Newsroom.
South Africa is in need of a frank dialogue about the state of our nation. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. Join me on Frankly Speaking every Sunday at 8:30. Come now, let's talk frankly.
Now, to talk more about Jacob Zuma's constitutional legacy, we are now joined by Luando Xaso, constitutional law analyst. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Essentially, how would you summarize President Jacob Zuma's constitutional legacy, if one can put it at that?
I think first we should all acknowledge that the Republic still stands. We're all still here. And it's just been incredible in terms of how he's also impacted the news formatting, right? In that you guys now call on a lot of like legal analysts to come and sort of break down some of the cases and all of that. So a lot of people's careers have been affected by his presidency in terms of analysts and also South African news adapting some kind of like an international sort of model. So you see his influence not only in law, but in culture and in media and all of that. And I would say that it's everyone's sentiment, actually. It's not an original thought, that we really tested the boundaries of the Constitution since he has been in office. And I think we've had some incredible jurisprudence. But most importantly, I think what his presidency has done is sort of highlighted the position of the Constitutional Court within a constitutional democracy. So I don't know if you remember back in like, I think it was 2011, right? When we were changing chief justices and the president said something like, you know, those who fail to win the popular vote then use the courts to co-govern. And he said that we need to determine what the role of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary is in a constitutional democracy. And then following that, there was obviously the whole talk of the government wanting to review the Constitutional Court's powers, which was kind of alarming because it speaks to the independence of the judiciary and how sacrosanct that is. It would have been impossible to do. So they watered it down to, okay, we're going to review the judgments of the Constitutional Court and the impact that it's had. And I think that's, anyone can do that. So since Zuma's time, we've seen a lot of interesting cases. A lot more people are tuning into legal cases that are now being shown on TV. And it's just, it's been a development in constitutional law. And it didn't start with him. You know, there have been cases where Mandela's conduct was questioned and Begi's conduct was questioned. But when you look at the numbers, you know, it's quite different. And it's important to say that the Constitutional Court is the court that decides whether the law or the president's conduct is consistent with the Constitution. That means something in terms of the relationship that the three branches of government have with each other. And you also remember that the counter-revolutionary statement came from around that time. So it's been a very interesting couple of years. And I remember the first time when a president was recalled, I mean, I was a bit younger. It felt like, it was unsettling. It felt like there was another center of power that controlled things. And back then I didn't understand what proportional representation meant, and that there were two constitutions in a sense, that the ANC has its own and there's the national constitution and how they interact. And back then I thought the power to recall was actually much more stronger than what I realize now. Now I realize that the president and parliament does have considerable power, akin to the political party, if not more.
Now, there was also the sentiment, obviously, surrounding this, of the constitutional aspect of it, and many opposition parties talking about the oaths that he had gone against, according to the Constitution. What essentially is the role that the Constitutional Court should have taken when you are against oath of office?
No, they took the right, they made the right decision. This is the EFF judgment of 2016, where they challenged you had the Gandla issue with the security upgrades, and then you had the public protector, make recommendations, not recommendations. They called them recommendations, but we've since learned from the Constitutional Court that they're binding, and that the president had to pay back the money for the non-security upgrades. And what we got from that judgment is that his failure to do so, and never mind that the president in court actually conceded a big part of his case, that he was liable to pay back the non-security upgrades. But the Constitutional Court in that case really said, you know, our powers are limited when it comes to, we can't order, you know, the president to be impeached. That is wholly in the domain of the legislature. And I felt that they walked that line, you know, that separation of powers line really elegantly. And I thought that judgment was really a responsible one. And it really outlined that the only way to remove a president, as we saw this week, there are only two ways. Either he resigns or you vote in parliament. A recall is nothing but a polite ask, you know, can you please resign? Legally, it doesn't have as much power as people, I think, accord it. And, you know, it would have, if you didn't resign last night, it would have come down to a vote today.
Well, as they say, that is a recommendation. Having a look at President Jacob Zuma's 2 terms in office, from a constitutional...
Well, not 2 full terms.
Well, nearly 2 terms in office. What would you say would be constitutionally his undoing, apart from, you know, the media and, you know, the other sagas that have surrounded his administration?
I think for me, the Constitutional Court judgment, the one that we just spoke about, was really a significant one out of all the cases that we've had, and there have been a number of them. I mean, let's just go back, you know, under Nelson, just to give people perspective, under Nelson Mandela's term, I think he had about 4 cases that were brought against his conduct, never mind just general other cases challenging government policy and that kind of thing, but against the president's conduct. And the first one had to do with the president, Mandela at the time, being given powers to amend legislation. That's not in accordance with the Constitution, because only the legislature can make legislation. So the Constitutional Court found that any power that he has to amend legislation is unconstitutional. He went on television that night and said, I accept this decision. And you could tell what he was doing, because this entity, this institution called the Constitutional Court, was new. So he was almost extending his hand and building that cohesive relationship between the executive and the government. And I think there were 3 more cases. There were 2 that were successful and 2 that were unsuccessful against Nelson Mandela, if I'm correct. And then under Thabo Mbeki, there were 2. One was when he dismissed Billy Masetla as the head of NIA, and the other was when he granted pardons and without consulting the relevant people, and the court said that was not constitutional. So under Zuma, we've had a number of cases, right, regarding his conduct, the EFF being one of them, failing to pay back the money. We've had one where he extended the Chief Justice's term of office, and that was found to be unconstitutional. There've been you know, cases born from his presidency, like last year you had the secret ballot case, and that brought to the forefront this whole thing of duality of roles, you know, to the ANC constitution and then to the national constitution, and how those 2 relate. So I think overall, I can't pinpoint his constitutional undoing. I think if we had to look at constitutionalism as activism and people really engaging with the Constitution, that's been his undoing. I was reading in the media this morning that, I think it was The Atlantic, that said that, you know, he finally succumbed to party politics. That's incomplete. It wasn't just party politics that was his undoing. I think we saw a lot of people, especially with the last local elections, actually voicing their opinion and their grievances. And in terms of marching and protesting, civil society has been strong. You know, a lot of sectors, I mean, the churches and, you know, just normal citizens have been very vocal, whether it's on Twitter. I often wonder what life would have been like, you know, years ago if Black Twitter was still around, you know. So people have a number of avenues to express their grievances. This is not just a political party issue. Yeah.
Definitely. Speaking of Twitter and ending off, I saw a comment on Twitter saying that President Jacob Zuma was the most litigated president that we've had, just on a lighter note, just as we wrap up.
Yeah, it's got some truth to it, even though I think I want to do some research as to, you know, how many cases has he won and lost. I've got a sense of it, but he's definitely, I think, he's left a mark on constitutional law, and as you know, students of constitutional law are grateful for the work of the Constitutional Court in that regard, and all the other courts.
And as young people, I definitely feel we've learned a lot also with our constitution and at what constitutes, specifically with regards to the president and his powers. Thank you very much for joining us here in studio. That was constitutional law expert Luano Paso talking to us about former President Jacob Zuma's constitutional legacy. Well, SABC News reporter Iviwe Porti is joining us from a rainy Port Elizabeth as we continue to gauge reaction from in and around South Africa on the resignation of President Jacob Zuma. Very good morning. To give us some of the reaction on the ground from some of our PE residents this morning.
Well, good morning, Shante. We have been speaking to quite a few residents in PE since this morning. Some actually showing sympathy towards the president's resignation last night. But with me, I have members of the youth who are at university, whom also, you know, have a say in terms of what's happening in South Africa right now. Also being the future of South Africa, very important to them in terms of the political climate and the political direction that South Africa chooses to go into. Tell us, in terms of the new president, what is it that you may be expecting expecting as the youth to come from the new president?
I expect the new president to improve the service delivery in South Africa. And I expect the new president to improve this thing of free education. And the NSFAS has to reply early so that we can be able to buy books in times.
Thank you. And if I can just ask you, now that the president has resigned, Jacob Zuma has resigned, what were some of the concerns that you had? And I know earlier you said that you are a bit relieved that he has handed in his resignation.
It's that the tax collection in South Africa before Zuma was the president, it was recognized in the world and it was good. Now that he became a president, the economy and everything else went down, and so I hope that now that he stepped down, everything will go well.
Thank you. Guys, what are your views?
Well, I'm hoping now that because we have a new president, our South Africa will build, so our currency will get strong and make us be able to travel to places that we weren't able, like our parents weren't able to go to.
My view from all this is just that this decision from Jacob Zuma was one of the wisest decisions he's made. But yeah, it's a new start now for South Africa as we're going to have a new president, and I'm quite excited.
Thank you so much, guys. Well, there we have it from PE, mainly the youth here in Summerstrand, close to the campuses of Nelson Mandela University, saying that more than anything, they are actually looking to see what the future has for them. But for now, it's back to you guys in studio.
Thank you very much for giving us a blow-to-blow on-the-ground updates from PE. Let's have a look at some other news stories making headlines this morning. Well, messages of condolences continue to pour in for the late veteran Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai, who succumbed to cancer last night.
We take an in-depth look of all your stories of the day across the world. Stay tuned to Primetime News every day from 18 hours.
Messages of condolences continue to pour in for the late veteran Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai, who succumbed to cancer last night. In more news making headlines, 8 people have been killed when a minibus taxi and bakkie collided between Uzimkulu and Kokstad in KZN. And of course, Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille is also expected to face a vote of no confidence during a special sitting of the City Council today. Those are some of your other top stories making headlines this morning. But we'll start off in this half hour in neighbouring Zimbabwe. The country is this morning mourning the death of veteran opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai.
It's unfortunate.
to the family, to the nation at large, the passing on of Mr. Dr. Richard Morgan Tsvangirai on the 14th of February 2018. It is with great sadness that he had been battling with cancer for a long time, but now it has come to pass that he is no more. I think and I hope and I believe that to him he has rested. We hope that with the arrangement that is there, we'll be able to carry him home.
I learned a lot about the democratic struggle in Zimbabwe. As you know, he was a fighter for democracy all his life, and I learned a lot from that process. My message to the international community is to keep supporting the democratic struggle. The fight is not over, and it's still continuing. The democratic struggle still lives on, and it will be the legacy of my father that it is seen to fruition.
Well, the 5 suspects arrested following raids on Gupta-linked properties in Johannesburg yesterday are expected to appear in court in Bloemfontein today. The Hawks raided the Saxon World residence of Gupta brothers and a property believed to be owned by the former managing director of a Gupta company, Sahara Systems, in Bedfordview. The raids are connected to the Freda Dairy Farm project, which cost Free State taxpayers nearly 570 million rand, and a much larger operating target alleged fraud, corruption, theft and money laundering linked to state capture. Well, Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille will face a vote of no confidence during a special sitting of the City Council today. She faces allegations of maladministration and corruption, which she has denied. De Lille has welcomed a High Court decision ordering the City Council Speaker to exercise his discretion in deciding whether the vote of no confidence should be held in secret. She says she was never against the motion itself, but just wanted councillors to vote without worrying about whether they will get in trouble with the DA's leadership. Some international news now. 17 people have been killed in a school shooting in Florida in the United States. A 19-year-old former pupil of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland opened fire with an AR-15 rifle after triggering off a fire alarm. The gunman has been identified as Nicholas Cruz, who has been expelled for disciplinary reasons. He was arrested without incident in the nearby town of Coral Springs and taken to hospital with minor injuries. And of course, coming up after the break, you can expect all your news and sporting highlights.
South Africa is in need of a frank dialogue about the state of our nation. My name is JJ Tavane. Join me on Frankly Speaking every Sunday at 8:30. Come now, let's talk frankly.
Welcome to Media Monitor, the show that analyzes the big news stories that made headlines. We bring you robust discussions on stories that made headlines in the week, where we interact with media analysts to unpack these top stories. Join me every Sunday morning from 9 to 10 Central African Time as I bring you riveting news and analysis.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor every Sunday from 9 a.m. Our stories.
How do I begin?
Our lives. When all seems to fail, we will raise our voices a bit louder for our justice.
I went into absolute shock. My whole body was shaky. I couldn't hold a phone, but there he was. I couldn't believe the nonchalant that they were still in the area 2 weeks later.
and in times when the justice system is not able to help us with our individual battles.
I'm willing to do anything. What are you doing? Nothing. Feeling sorry for yourself? No, it's not an option.
These are our stories on Cutting Edge Channel 404.
Why is there a dispute over who is the rightful heir to the throne?
What I can say is that Masindi is a woman. She's a girl child. Because I think that if she was a male, there's no way that anybody was going to dispute the fact that she is the rightful heir.
Do you recognize her as your rightful heir?
Yeah, no, I would definitely say that she is my daughter. She grew up there.
What is the intention?
I want my throne.
Join me in Port Zedu live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.
I have therefore come to the decision to resign.
South Africa reacts to Jacob Zuma's resignation. A new dawn as Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to be sworn in as the country's new head of state. It's now official that the State of the Nation will take place tomorrow evening. And we also know that 7 suspects arrested following an operation on the Gupta Link properties are expected to appear in a Bloemfontein court this morning. Indeed, very good morning to you. Welcome to Newsroom. I am Shante Yankees. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. A lot coming up between now and 12 p.m., including the latest from President Jacob Zuma's resignation, as well as your views and news from the continent. The top story: former President Jacob Zuma has avoided a motion of no confidence in Parliament by resigning as head of state last night. Zuma is the second consecutive ANC president to resign as head of state after former President Thabo Mbeki stepped down in 2008. Zuma barely made the 48-hour deadline set by the ANC for him to resign, taking to the podium at the Union Buildings in Pretoria for the very last time as head of state.
I've served in my capacity as President of the Republic of South Africa within the prism of our much acclaimed Constitution, whose foundational values are fully subscribed to. I understand fully that while I serve at the pleasure of my party, the ANC, the door through which I officially came to serve the people of South Africa is the National Assembly, without which no political party can impose its candidate on the electorate, no matter how popular. This constitutional line between party and state is often forgotten in the usual business of party political contestations. As we fight our own battles in the corridors of political power, and sometimes serving the very interests of the oppressors of yesterday, who joyfully celebrate as we lynch one another, we often forget the citizens on whose behalf we create a better life. We tend to place the political party above the supreme law of the country, which is the rule book of the country's political engagement. I do not make this reference because I am above reproach, nor do I wish to proclaim that in understanding my political responsibilities, I have been the epitome of perfection. If truth be told, none of us are. It is now public knowledge that the National Executive Committee of the ANC resolved to recall me as the President of the Republic. The ANC should never be divided in my name. I have therefore come to the decision to resign as President of the Republic with immediate effect.
Well, the former president said he had not been afraid to lose his presidential perks if he was removed through impeachment. He also said he did not fear losing a vote of no confidence.
I respect the prescripts of the Constitution and its consequences on how we enter, stay in, and exit political office and government. There has been much speculation about how the President of the Republic should exit his or her office. Make no mistake, no leader should stay beyond the time determined by the people they serve. Most importantly, no leader should seek an easy way out simply because they could not face life at the end of their term without the perks that come with their political office. I do not fear exiting political office. However, I have only asked my party to articulate my transgressions, and the reason for its immediate instruction that I vacate office.
In the latest developments regarding the country's transition into new leadership, we can now confirm that the State of the Nation address will take place tomorrow evening.
Of the State of the Nation address penciled in for Thursday, 8th February.
Well, the Joint Programming Committee of Parliament unanimously agreed on the event details this morning. It has also agreed that the State of the Nation debate and the reply to SONA will take place next week, Monday and Tuesday, as was proposed by ANC Chief Whip Jackson Tembu. The new president, who is expected to be sworn in this afternoon, will address the nation tomorrow. Joint Programme Committee co-chairperson Thandi Modise gave the final endorsement. Meanwhile, officials in Parliament are reportedly preparing for the swearing-in of the new President of the Republic today. Chief Justice Mogoeng told the National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete that he will not be available tomorrow to preside over the swearing-in of the President. The swearing-in of the new President is now expected to take place during the special sitting this afternoon. Chief Justice spokesperson Nathi Ncube says Mogoeng will officiate the ceremony this afternoon. Well, continuing with your on-the-ground reaction from South Africans all over the country this morning. In Polokwane, we are joined by SABC's Philip van der Walt, who is on standby. Very good morning to you, Philip. The sentiments on the streets of President Jacob Zuma's resignation.
Good morning. Yes, I'm basically on the street in Polokwane. And I've asked one of the gentlemen that walked past whether he has got any opinion on what has happened between last night and today. Sir, how do you feel about what has happened?
Yeah, I'm very happy. I think the resignation of the president was long overdue. And now we're happy that he did the right thing and surrendered. Remember, the constitution of the ANC says the president of the ANC shall be the president of the country. And Comrade Zuma is no longer the president of the ANC. So there was no reason why he would refuse and want to cling to power while his time has actually run out. I think it's good for the country, it's good for the ANC, it's good for the economy, it's good for whatever situation that had befallen our country, that he has resigned, and we now open a new page, we now open a new book that will actually facilitate growth in the economy, growth in whatever that comes to help the country as a whole.
How do you feel about the new leadership under Cyril Ramaphosa?
I think the markets have already shown. People across the globe have already said. People within the country has already said. This is a very good leader. He has a very good track record as a leader, as a person, and the country as a whole, and globally as well, do not doubt the capacity and the capability that President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to bring into this country.
A last question. Since Cyril Ramaphosa became the president of the ANC until last night, do you feel that the situation was handled well, or do you feel it should have been handled differently?
No, it was handled very well. Remember, he has always been saying, we do not want to remove the president in a manner that would humiliate him. Why was he saying that? Because he was preaching unity. And when he preaches unity, he knows there are people who still hero worship, there are people who still want the outgone president. So he didn't want to do it in a manner that would actually look like he was paging. He wanted to do it in a responsible way, in a more respectable manner, so that the unity of the movement prevails. I'm very happy with it.
From Polokwane, thank you very much, and going back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Philip, giving us on-the-ground reactions there. Well, in Parliament, SABC's Lucanyo Alata spoke to various political parties on the resignation of Jacob Zuma. Very good morning to you, Lucanyo. Of course, a motion of no confidence is now off the table. What is the reaction coming in from Parliament?
Thank you very much, and welcome to Parliament, where we continue to update you on the reactions from political parties, as well as to what the program will be for the next 2 days, now that President Jacob Zuma has finally tendered his resignation. I'm now joined by the Chief Whip of the Inkatha Freedom Party, Mr. Naren Singh. Sir, good morning, and thanks so very much for joining us. Obviously, a very important day today. What's the lineup, or what's the program for Parliament today, as you know?
Well, good morning to you and your viewers. We've had a meeting early this morning of the Joint Programming Committee, where all parties agreed that SONA should proceed tomorrow evening, and that the replies will take place on Monday and the President will reply on Tuesday. So that had to be a formal resolution. Secondly, the Programming Committee, National Assembly Programming Committee, confirmed that we that we change the order of business for today from being a motion of no confidence, which is now superfluous since President Zuma has given notice in writing to the presiding officers that he has resigned, and the item will be replaced with the election of a president presided over by the Chief Justice, who has agreed and who has called this meeting for this afternoon.
Are you guys happy, of course, the fact that, I mean, we don't now have to go through the process of a motion of no confidence?
Well, I think it's happy and sad. We would have liked to say to South Africa exactly what we feel about President Zuma and his reign and why we would have supported a motion of no confidence. But anyway, that's water under the bridge now. We'll have to go to the next step of responding to the current president, whoever that is, in the SONA debate.
All right, Mr. Singh, thank you very much for the time. We really do appreciate it. That was Mr. Naren Singh, who is the chief whip of the Inkatha Freedom Party. Let me now quickly speak to the EFF, Ma'am Uhlengiwe Mkhaliphi. Ma'am, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much to you and to the viewers at home.
All right. Ma'am, as the EFF, what do you guys make, obviously, of the resignation by the president?
Yeah, well, it was long overdue, and we thought that the president, which is Zuma, is a former president now, he felt pressure to resign, and he was all along undermining his own political party, and then we've been warning the ANC about his conduct, but well, now it's all is history because he's gone.
The EFF did not get the opportunity to state your motion of no confidence inside in the House. Is it a bittersweet moment?
No, well, we are not going to proceed with our vote of no confidence because of this, the very same reason that he have resigned yesterday. But I think the trophy goes to EFF because everything that was done and was said by EFF since they came in Parliament in 2014, now Zuma is gone. Zuma is fallen.
All right, ma'am, thank you very much. That was Uhlengiwe Mkhaliphi, who is the Deputy Chief Whip and Secretary General of the Economic Freedom Fighters. I'm now quickly joined by Professor Nhlanhla Khubisa from the National Freedom Party. Sir, a bittersweet moment is this morning for you?
Yes, I think all is well. Things are going as planned. Yeah. Of course, we met as the chief whips this morning, joint chief whips, and we planned that today we are going to have the election of the president, and then he'll be sworn in. Then tomorrow we're going to have SONA, and then the program will go as per plan. And of course, we are happy that at least people of South Africa will just have a sigh, a little bit of a sigh, a little bit of breathing after the era that was marred by controversy, controversy to controversy. So now the new leadership that is coming in must ensure that they build this country. Our economy is ailing, there are no jobs, and of course there is a lot that has to be done to rebuild the country. Now, as the NFP, we are waiting to see whether they have the courage and they have the capacity to do that, because that's the only thing that the people need, just to rebuild the country and ensure that we grow the economy for the sake of all South Africans.
All right, Professor Khubisa there from the National Freedom Party. Let me now quickly turn to Mr. Ngabayomzi Kwankwa, who is the Chief Whip and the Deputy President of the United Democratic Movement. Mr. Kwankwa, you guys obviously must be pleased by last night's development, the resignation of the President.
Yes, the story of the African National Congress and President Zuma's unrequited love or unreciprocated love has come to a screeching end. Why am I saying that? Remember, the very same ANC that has been showering President Zuma with love over the past few years was once again last night in the resignation speech showed the middle finger by its own president, or former president I should say. We're happy obviously because remember we're about South Africa and nothing else. Our fight with President Zuma was not personal, by the way. It was because of his misrule and the impact of his bad leadership on South Africa. Now we're saying that we call upon all our colleagues, everyone, to say that we have an individual and collective responsibility to work together to build a South Africa in which we all look forward to the sunrise of our tomorrow, to show to South Africans that the only thing that we're fighting about was Jacob Zuma's misrule. We're not trying to take a shortcut to political power. So now we have to work with the new administration, roll up our sleeves and try to make a difference and try to ensure, in fact, that this parliament is effective, that it plays a proper oversight role over the executive.
What are some of the key issues that the new incoming president, most likely to be Cyril Ramaphosa, what are the key issues that he must address immediately according to the UDM?
Look, the first thing would have to be corruption and maladministration. Remember, those resources are resources that are diverted to people's pockets that could be used for socio-economic development of the country. The other issue, obviously, is to make sure that those who looted state resources, like President Zuma and his cronies, face the full might of the law. That is important. We are going to keep a close eye on that. But I think the other issue would have to do with socio-economic issues of unemployment, job creation, which is at the top of our agenda, to say how you're also going to improve service delivery in general. Also make sure that there is value in every single rand that the country spends on issues around the country. The wastage in the system is just too much.
All right. Mr. Ngabayom Zikwankwa from the UDM, thank you very much. That was Ngabayom Zikwankwa, the Chief Whip of the United Democratic Movement. Let me see if I can quickly call Mr. Lulama Njaisa, who is from the AIC. Mr. Njaisa, very briefly, sir, your response today to the fact that President Jacob Zuma resigned last night, but also critically the fact that there is now an election of a new president this afternoon.
Yeah, let us first appreciate the fact that the former President Jacob Zuma has resigned. So he has done something great for the country. So we still regard him as a great man because that is what all the people of South Africa were looking forward to. Then now that we are going to elect a new president is good, hoping that it's going to be Cyril Ramaphosa. Then we think now he has learned from Jacob Zuma as his former president, deputy president, because he was a deputy president to Jacob Zuma. So he must have learned a lot from him. Then I should not repeat the mistakes now that were done by the former president. Of course, there's no one who's perfect. There's no perfection in this world, but now we should try to be perfect. Yes.
All right. So thank you very much. Thank you. That was Lulama Njaisa, who is from the AIC. So this is what we know about what's happening this morning. The National Assembly will no longer be sitting, of course, because President Jacob Zuma has resigned. What will happen is that the National Assembly will now only sit at 2 o'clock when it will elect a new president. We do expect that that will be ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, who will then, that event, or the sitting of the House at least, will be officiated over by the Chief Justice Mogoeng, who has confirmed his availability. And then after that, we will then have a State of the Nation address by the new president, but that is only going to take place tomorrow evening. I think from us here in Parliament, it's over to you guys in studio for the time being.
Thank you very much, Lucano Kalata, for SABC News, gauging reaction from opposition as well as confirmation of SONA, which is now expected to take place tomorrow. Well, our poll here on SABC Newsroom this morning, we've been asking you, of course, do you think Cyril Ramaphosa will be the change that South Africa needs? Over 1,300 votes already coming in this morning. Let's have a look at some of the comments behind those numbers there. Well, Nkosi says that we are the change that South Africa needs. We should empower ourselves enough to be independent of political systems in the long run. Well, Matt says that Cyril is a game changer. No one is perfect, but I do think that under his leadership we are going to see good governance and corruption is being uprooted as we speak. This one coming in from Barry Martin on Twitter. Cyril is the key for South Africa, but he should start to clean in Parliament because there are still corrupt people in power. Indeed. Thank you very much for sending us some of your tweets with our poll and our question here on SABC Newsroom. For now, though, let's take a short break.
Technology is used for both positive and negative.
Some governments block the internet in times of protest.
With this internet blackout, it's impossible for me to do it, so I have to travel to Douala.
This act is a true violation of the rights of citizens.
In Africa, people are always coming up with innovative ways to use technology to solve some of their problems.
The more interesting piece of technology is actually the artificial intelligence.
AI, it's utilizing data to make your life easier.
Our network will give you Africa's technology and social media news.
For all your technology news, join Siphumelele Zondi every Saturday at 17:30.
Well, indeed, let's have a look at our question of the day that we've been following on SABC Newsroom. We ask, what do you expect from the ANC now? Send us your comments on at SABC Newsroom. Let's have a look at our comment of the day. The comment of the day, of course, comes from Miss Dawe Philip. We were just as happy as we are now when Mbeki resigned. Little did we know that I hope we are not making the same mistake again. Of course, that's again with regards to reaction on Zuma's resignation. Is Cyril going to be the hope that South Africa is hoping for? Thank you very much for sending us your comment. That was our comment of the day. Let's have a look now at our newspapers on what is making headlines front page and centre globally this morning. We'll start off in Europe. Well, the Times reports that a bitter Jacob Zuma quits as South Africa's president last night, ending a 2-week power struggle with his successor Cyril Ramaphosa that has paralysed the country's politics and threatened long-term damage to the ruling ANC. Moving to Swaziland, the Swaziland Observer says President Jacob Zuma resigned as leader of South Africa on Wednesday evening, of course, during a televised address to the nation. And finally, in Namibia, the Namibian reports that the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress yesterday said that the recall of South African President Jacob Zuma was not because he had done anything wrong. Well, let's continue getting reactions on the resignation of President Jacob Zuma. We were earlier joined in studio by the ANC Veterans League's president, Dr. Snuki Izikalala, and political analyst, Professor Stephen Friedman.
Well, the ANC has started this campaign. We started our campaign in terms of building confidence amongst the masses. We have said that we are dealing with corruption. We have seen what the Hawks are doing. We're saying that all parastatals have to be restructured. We are saying that the economy must start ticking. We're building confidence amongst investors. And so I think in that way, once you create stability within the country itself, once you create stability amongst investors, once you create stability, especially in society, and we as ANC are saying we're prepared to say we're prepared to self-correct. We have to self-correct and say to society, go back to society and say, we apologize, we've made mistakes. We want you to give us another chance to govern on your behalf. Definitely society will pardon us. As long as society sees that those who are responsible for this anarchy, for this mass looting, are taken behind bars. And it should happen, and it should happen soon.
Professor, is Cyril Ramaphosa the man for this job? Or has, for the lack of a better word, the dislike of President Jacob Zuma just been so strong that, you know, South Africans and the people just wanted him out?
I think South Africans really, and I wrote this the other day, I think South Africans really need to get over this obsession with particular individuals. Okay? Cyril Ramaphosa is president of the ANC. He will soon be president of the country. He doesn't run things on his own. He's part of a group of people. He's part of he's got allies, etc. The question is not Cyril Ramaphosa. The question is, will the new leadership of the ANC, which yes is led by Cyril Ramaphosa, rise to the challenges that we talk at the moment? People are not going to vote for the ANC in 2019 simply because Cyril Ramaphosa has replaced Jacob Zuma. They will vote for the ANC in 2019 if the kind of issues that Dr. Zikalala is talking about are actually addressed. If they feel, to me it goes beyond, yes, it is important to put behind bars people who've done wrong, but I think it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that because it means reaching out to millions of South Africans who are excluded from the economy and saying to them, we have a plan, we want to bring you into the economy, we want you to be part of South Africa's economy, and we want you to be productive citizens. I think if the ANC can show that it's listening to people at the grassroots, the question of whether individual X or individual Y is president of the country is secondary. The issue is, what is the government doing about the problems of real South Africans?
Your comment, Doctor?
Yeah, well, I fully agree with what Professor Stephen Friedman is saying. What is important for us as ANC is to unite society, is to unite ANC, and to make sure that we win back the lost moral ground that we had before. And definitely, with the leadership of Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, we will be able to convince society that the ANC is on its renewal path.
Coming up after the break, messages of condolences continue to pour in for the late veteran Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai, who succumbed to cancer last night.
When life takes a different turn.
If I didn't eat the speak, he was going to evict me.
Your will to persevere is ignited.
I'm not a professional speaker, but I'll try my best to give you a word of inspiration.
He was just trying to provide for his family.
If you can't accept it, change it. If you cannot change it, accept it.
And a new story begins.
I made a resolve to myself. I'm learning something new.
Bophilong, every Friday at 5:30. Be part of the life-changing journey.
Corruption both in the public and the private sectors needs to be combated.
Where there are clear cases of wrong that has been done, that must commence immediately.
Something is being done about corruption in our country.
Currency, even although it strengthened dramatically after the ANC's recent elective conference, could conceivably go stronger yet.
He had a soul that would not be for sale.
Stay tuned to Your World for your final news roundup, Monday to Sunday at 21:30.
Messages of condolences continue to pour in for the late veteran Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai, who succumbed to cancer last night. A teenage boy goes on a shooting spree, claiming the lives of 17 people in a US school. And on home soil, Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille expected to face a vote of no confidence during a special sitting of the City Council today. The lead story this half hour, Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille will face a vote of no confidence during a special sitting of the City Council today. She faces allegations of maladministration and corruption, which she has denied. De Lille has welcomed a High Court decision ordering the City Council Speaker to exercise his discretion in deciding whether the vote of confidence should be held in secret. She says she was never against the motion itself, but just wanted councillors to vote without worrying about whether they will get in trouble with the DA's leadership. In international news, 17 people have been killed in a school shooting in Florida in the United States. A 19-year-old former pupil of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland opened fire with an AR-15 rifle after triggering off a fire alarm. The gunman has been identified as Nicholas Cruz, who had been expelled for disciplinary reasons. He was arrested without incident in the nearby town of Coral Springs and taken to hospital with minor injuries. A horrific accident has claimed 8 lives in KwaZulu-Natal. It happened in a heavy rain at SABC between Umzimkulu and Kokstad and involved a minibus taxi and a bakkie. Well, eyewitnesses say the vehicles were overtaking a truck when one was hit by the other from behind. Both vehicles left the road in opposite directions. All those who lost their lives were passengers in the taxi. Zimbabweans are mourning the death of veteran opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai. He died in Johannesburg yesterday at the age of 65 after a long battle with colon cancer. He was diagnosed with the disease in 2016 and had been undergoing regular treatment.
Former Prime Minister Tsvangirai was born on the 10th of March 1952 in the Gutu area south of Harare, the son of a bricklayer. He is the eldest of the 9 children. After leaving school early to support his family, Tsvangirai started working in Zimbabwe mines. In 1978, he married the late Susan Mudwa, who was affectionately known as Amai President. Mrs. Tsvangirai died on the 6th of March 2009 in a tragic road collision en route to Buhera that also injured the Prime Minister. Between 1974 and 1984, Morgan became a union member and organizer at the Trojan Nickel Mine. He started at the mine as a plant operator and became general foreman in 1975. He became Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions and later persuaded the union to cut ties with ZANU-PF, the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front. He led a national strike, the first in the nation's history, demanding economic reforms to combat Zimbabwe's high inflation and unemployment rate. Days after leading a strike, he was beaten unconscious and nearly killed in his union's office by supporters of President Robert Mugabe. September 11, 1999, the Movement for Democratic Change is launched with Tsvangirai as president. Tsvangirai helped form the MDC together with the union and a variety of civil organizations representing women and students. He was unanimously voted president of the new party.
I recognize the honor you have bestowed on me. I know the depth of your feelings and I know the nation's expectations. I promise to deliver a service in your name. I promise to lead from the front, and I promise to use all available resources and the willpower of the people to see off this tyranny of Zimbabwe.
In 2001, he attended the executive leadership program at Harvard University. During his political career, Tsvangirai has survived several assassination attempts, the first being in 1997 when an unidentified assailant attempted to throw him out of the window of a Harare office building. In 2001, Tsvangirai was awarded the prestigious Solida Silva Rose Award for outstanding achievement by an individual or organization in the activities of civil society and in bringing about a fairer and a more just society. The following year, in 2002, he was arrested and charged with treason in a suspected plot to assassinate President Mugabe. Just before the presidential elections in 2002, a secretly recorded videotape emerged which purported to show Tsvangirai discussing Mugabe's assassination with security consultants in Canada ahead of the presidential elections. His trial started the following year on charges of treason and attempted assassination. In 2003, Tsvangirai was arrested and later jailed for allegedly violating the Public Order and Security Act by encouraging a general strike lasting 5 days in the capital city of Harare. He was widely quoted by various media when he told the rally of his MDC party that if Mugabe does not go peacefully, he will be removed by force. For that statement, Tsvangirai was charged with treason for a third time in 2003. Morgan was briefly detained as his supporters launched a series of mass protests dubbed the final push to oust Mugabe. During the same month, he was arrested again shortly after holding a news conference to call for more protests. In October 2004, he was acquitted for treason charges by the Zimbabwe High Court. But Tsvangirai and his 2 accused, Welshman Ncube and Renson Gasela, who were acquitted earlier, pleaded not guilty. He said he was framed and his comments taken out of context. A charismatic speaker, considered brave by his supporters, he emerged during the year 2000 parliamentary elections as popular challenger to President Robert Mugabe. Despite that, Tsvangirai drew Zimbabweans in their millions to vote for him and the MDC in the next 3 elections until 2005, each one progressively marred by allegations of cheating and violent intimidation by Mugabe. In 2007, he was severely beaten while in police custody after being arrested on his way to an anti-government protest rally.
Oh, terrible. Terrible.
It was a horrible assault.
Well, it was a
violent,
sadist attack on defenseless people. Okay.
The following year, he claimed victory in elections. But Zimbabwe Electoral Commission announced a runoff election between Tsvangirai and Mugabe, although Tsvangirai had received more votes, 47.9 to 43. In 2008, he pulled out of the runoff, declaring that he can no longer participate in a race that's been marred by widespread intimidation, torture, mutilation, and murder of his supporters.
We in the MDC have resolved that we will no longer participate in this violent, illegitimate sham of an election process. The courageous people of Zimbabwe, of this country, and the people of the MDC have done everything humanly and democratically possible to deliver a new Zimbabwe under a new government.
But after successful negotiations, Mugabe and Tsvangirai signed the global political agreement, which stated that Tsvangirai would become prime minister and Mugabe will remain president, commander-in-chief and chairman of the cabinet.
I have signed this agreement because I believe it represents the best opportunity for us to build a peaceful, prosperous, democratic Zimbabwe. I have signed this agreement because my belief in Zimbabwe and its peoples runs deeper than the scars I bear from the struggle.
Zimbabwe's long-time opposition leader, Mongen Tsvangirai, was sworn in as Prime Minister of a unity government on the 11th of February 2009, ending President Robert Mugabe's 29-year monopoly on power. For Tsvangirai's movement for democratic change, the inauguration kept a decade of non-violent resistance to President Robert Mugabe's rule. The same year, along with MDC, Tsvangirai boycotted the coalition government after violence increased and Roy Bennett, one of MDC's leaders, was arrested on charges of terrorism. Tsvangirai lost 2003 presidential elections with 34% of the vote to President Robert Mugabe's 61, according to the Election Commission. Tsvangirai alleged widespread fraud and promised to challenge the results in court.
I assure you that the people's victory is assured in spite of the regime's attempts to subvert the people's will through other fraudulent activities that have been unearthed.
The election results brought an end to the 2008 Government of National Unity, facilitated by former South African President Thabo Mbeki. During the GNU, Tsvangirai served as Prime Minister and Mugabe remained the President. On the 9th of August 2013, MDC filed a court challenge to the results of Zimbabwe's general elections, which the party criticized as fraudulent. The party wanted to have results of the July 31 election declared null and void by the Constitutional Court and fresh elections held. The MDC withdrew the case after the hearing, but the court went ahead to dismiss the application. On the 27th of June 2016, Tsvangirai revealed that he was suffering from colon cancer. Lehana Tsoteti, SABC News.
Have a look at some of your sporting highlights now. Well, Baraka FC scrapped into the Nedbank Cup second round with a hard-fought 1-0 win over Platinum Stars. The opening round of 32 concluded yesterday with 4 matches. The draw for the round of 16 will take place this evening at 6 p.m.
Madubanya in the meantime for Morocco.
Well, the lone goal came from the spot kick after Sibusiso Mthethwa tripped Nduduzi Mdanche on his way to the goal. Gift Motupa stepped up to send Mbongeni Mzimela the wrong way. It took Free State Stars 120 minutes to get into the Ned Cup second round after a 2-1 win over the Super Eagles. The NFD side went ahead after Bongani Mbulu stepped up to give them a 1-goal lead on the stroke of half-time. Luke Emel's side found the equaliser on the stroke of the full-time through Roy to send the game into 30 minutes of extra time. They took the lead for the first time in the game after Ghanaian Mohamed Anas stepped up inside the box to rifle home from close range for a last 16 spot. Some international football now. Real Madrid and Liverpool put one foot in the UEFA Champions League quarter-finals with wins in the first leg matches of their respective round of 16 ties. Cristiano Ronaldo scored twice as Real Madrid came from behind to stun Paris Saint-Germain 3-1. Ronaldo scored his 100th Champions League goal for the title holders Real from the penalty spot late in the first half to cancel out Adrien Rabiot's opener for the French side at the Santiago Bernabeu, set up all by Neymar. Having looked set to come away from a previous draw, the defeat piles the pressure on coach Unai Emery, but for Real the outcome is an enormous boost for their boss Zinedine Zidane. Well, Marco Asensio came off the bench to set up each of the two late goals scored by Marcelo and competition's top scorer Ronaldo. Sadio Mane scored a brilliant treble as Liverpool romped to a 5-0 thrashing of Porto. Mane first fired the away side ahead before Mohamed Salah's audacious finish for his 30th goal of the season, quickly making it 2. The Senegalese forward slotted in his second as Liverpool completely clouted out their opponents, with Roberto Firmino adding his name to the score sheet with 20 minutes to play before Mane's searing strike completed his first European hat-trick. In some tennis news now, Alexander Zverev was stunned in the last 16 of the Rotterdam Open by Italian Andrea Seppi. A 33-year-old veteran Seppi had lost in the final qualifying round, but featured in the tournament as a lucky loser. He made the most of his chance by beating Zverev in straight sets 6-4, 6-3. Zverev took an early 3-1 lead, but Seppi was able to break back in the first set and control the game by moving Zverev around the baseline with well-placed ground strokes. Seppi now goes on to face Slovakian 28-year-old Martin Klizan in the quarterfinals of the ATP event. Roger Federer moved a step closer to reclaiming the top spot in the men's tennis when he beat Belgium's Ruben Belmans 6-1, 6-2. The 36-year-old Swiss master needs only to reach the semi-finals at the event to overtake Rafael Nadal at the top of the ATP rankings and become world #1 for the first time since November 2012. Well, Federer would surpass American Andre Agassi as the oldest world #1 if he wins his next 2 matches in Rotterdam, and he would also set another record of the longest gap of 5 years and 106 days between periods as #1. Well, Norway's 35-year-old Axel Lund Svindal has become the oldest man to win gold in Olympic alpine skiing history. Svindal's compatriot, Kjetil Jansrud, claimed silver in the men's downhill event in an impressive day for the Norwegians at the Winter Games in Pyeongchang. It was also Norway's first gold medal in the popular event.
Over the final jump!
Switzerland's Beat Feuz leads the World Cup standings and was tipped as the man to beat. He was in first place after his 1 minute 40.43 seconds run, but was passed by the Norwegians and finally had to settle for bronze. Svindal produced a spectacular finish to edge out Jansrud and Feuz, his fastest time 1 minute 40.25 seconds, good enough for his second Olympic gold. With his victory, Norway joined Austria, France, Switzerland, the United States and Italy as the only countries to have won gold in the downhill races.
And the Norwegian fans are loving it in the finish area.
Elsewhere, France's Pierre Vautier clinched his second consecutive gold medal in the men's snowboard cross big final. He led from start to finish in the pack of 6 as 2 Americans, Nick Baumgartner and Mick Deerdorf, and Australian Alex Pullen fell towards the end of the race. Vautier finally finished 0.27 seconds ahead of another Australian, Jared Hughes, while Regino Hernandez of Spain took the bronze.
Vautier has just made another statement. 2 gold medals in a row for the Frenchman.
In the women's giant slalom, American Michaela Schifrin won gold in 2 minutes 20.02 seconds. She edged out Norway's Ragnhild Malwinkel and third place Federica Brignone from Italy. It was Schifrin's second Olympic gold. She also won the slalom crown in Sochi 4 years ago, a title she will defend on Friday. Meanwhile, German pair Alyona Savchenko and Bruno Massot's flawless performance gave them gold in the pairs figure skating. It was Savchenko's first gold in 5 Olympic appearances. They pulled off a high score of 159.31 in the free skate, a new Olympic and world record. Wen Jingsu and Kong Han of China took silver, and Canadians Megan Dumel and Eric Radford the bronze.
Savchenko and Massot. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Liesl Zankel, SABC News.
Now that's a wrap up of our sporting highlights. Let's cross over to the weather desk to see what's happening. Seatley, we do know that very, very rainy weather here in Johannesburg. What's the rest of South Africa looking like this morning?
Well, thank you very much. And taking a look at what's happening for the rest of South Africa, unfortunately, this satellite image is showing us just a few things, showing us cloudy weather over the central interior. Now, this white cloud is moving towards the east as the day progresses. As you can see here, over the Western Cape and Northern Cape region, it is becoming clearer and clearer as the day progresses, while here over the central interior, we're still seeing some patches of thunderstorms leading to isolated showers in those areas. And taking a look at your rainfall output expected for the rest of the day, still expecting these thunderstorms here, which are already here over the central interior, to move towards the eastern parts. That is moving towards Mpumalanga province. Places in Limpopo, southern parts of Limpopo, can expect some early showers, especially places closer to Gauteng and Mpumalanga and northwest provinces. Those areas can receive rain quite early on in the day, while over the western parts it is continuing with the clearing. But tomorrow, once again, we're still expecting most of the rain over the eastern part of the country, and we're seeing those continued rains. But over the western parts, we're seeing here now encroaching into the central Namibia, no more rains for tomorrow day as well, while they continue towards Botswana, Zimbabwe, and of course Zambia, all these places highlighted in blue. Taking a look at your maximum temperatures this afternoon, a high of 33 in Uppington, or 30 is your high in Springbok. Clear skies all along the western coastline down towards Cape Town, where once again we're seeing clear skies and a high of 26. At central interior, it continues with rain and more on and off here in Gauteng for the whole day, including parts of KwaZulu-Natal, while Polokwane is expected to receive its rain later on in the day. And moving further north, we're seeing just partly cloudy skies here in Namibia, while in places like Botswana, isolated thunderstorms expected. They already started in the southern parts, in places like Gaborone, moving towards Francistown here over the east, and of course later on ending up in Beitbridge, including Bulawayo and Harare, which is peaking at 23, basically cooler today as compared to yesterday, while warmer conditions are returning here towards the northern parts of Madagascar, high of 29 in Mahajanga. Coming towards West Africa, we're seeing here just partly cloudy skies in Kilimanjaro, but further north towards Kenya, also partly cloudy skies are expected, with cooler temperatures in Kigali, a high of 24, while here in Dar es Salaam, we're expecting a high of 32 for today and Thursday, but tomorrow we're expecting once again some rain. West Africa expecting some isolated showers along the coastal areas. Bangui, hotter temperatures today at a high of 37. Now further north, we're seeing some isolated thunderstorms here over the interior of Egypt, while mostly clear skies are expected in Chad and Niger. While now we're starting to see the rain moving into a Central African Republic and places like Cameroon over the central interior. Now we're going to start seeing some more rains here in this part of the world. But of course, taking a look at your maximum temperatures, it's still quite hot in Sudan with a high of 41. That's Khartoum. Massawa peaking at 35 degrees. And Sanaa peaking at 25. Just last but not least, looking at with the northern parts, warmer temperatures in Cairo as compared to yesterday with a high of 21. That's all I have. Remember, everywhere you go, take the weather with you.
We're shooting a campaign. We're telling genuine stories from real people that have been affected by the SABC. It's also interesting to get the backstory in terms of their dreams to be on screen and eventually getting the pleasure to do that. And understanding that they're communicating on a platform that speaks to millions of people. It speaks to how the SABC can fulfill its mandate.
The SABC represents the opportunity for so many young South Africans, for old South Africans, to be able to look at the world that they may not experience any other way.
People should continue to pay their TV license because it allows the SABC to bring quality programming.
The TV license is really part of the lifeblood of the channel and the corporation.
When you're listening to your favorite jams, you're listening to your favorite radio DJ, you must know that you made it possible by paying your TV license.
It's such a holistic process that goes into TV licenses. It's not only one part where we say South Africans have to pay for TV licenses. You pay a TV license because you get so much value out of it, and that's the content that you get every single day on the SABC platforms.
I have been in the film industry now for 51 years. I am quite satisfied with the evolution of television now, that you have got a lot of actors and you have got a lot of crew members. We should also play part of paying our licenses, because I think it's proper.
This is the man who only has his album out on digital format. Chance the Rapper has landed 7 Grammy nominations this year. This success is overseas. A few Pretoria students say they're switching to digital platforms that allow them to pay for their music.
I only buy the music that I really want, like house. Full album downloads, I'll always go straight to the place and get the whole album.
Yeah, I'm big on the streaming game right now.
Recently, Apple Music announced that they're now offering student discounts in South Africa. Musicians feel such offers are a good thing.
Of course, we're getting connected, onto online digital stores, and you're finding a lot of online releases actually long before artists release the physical copies of CDs, because they actually want to feed it onto online platforms.
Online platforms are encouraged to consider that Africa is a mobile-first continent.
And increasingly also from local platforms that have, customized services to cater to specific African markets, they're also becoming quite popular. But I think the key thing to take out is that, Africa is going the digital route, especially the mobile route.
We're dealing with a younger crowd here with smartphones who do not necessarily need to be inconvenienced by going to that mall to buy the CD. And you need to also understand that this also gives you the independence to buy the exact track that you need off an album.
Smartphones, tablets and other digital platforms are, however, opening up the industry to a lot of piracy, as many download and share the music without paying for it. Back to the group of students in Pretoria.
When it comes to downloading, if I have to download one song at a time, I'll go to pirate sites and I'll download. Hip-hop, I download, single tracks I download online from piracy.
It's just really easier to go on the pirate sites and download the music.
There are musicians who don't mind sharing for free because of the popularity it creates.
Nasty C decided to release his album Bad Hair for free on audio. It's called Audio Smack, and in a day he received over 187,000 listens and downloads in just one day. And then the following day he released it on iTunes, and This is weeks before he even released the hard copy, and he was already #1. So we are moving towards the digital platform, and it seems like it's now taking over. Although it's at a slow pace, but it's really taking over.
Some musicians don't see piracy as an entirely bad scenario.
The African music industry now is mostly reliant on the popularity of songs and hits. So in my opinion, first of all, the more popular a song is, the more other platforms, paid platforms, are interested in it. So if a song is shared so often, I want it illegally or pirated, it becomes so popular that the paid platforms now want to use it, and the TV stations that pay royalty also want to get it on them, want to be part of it, and also the artist gets more bookings, and which is where artists are now making a lot of money. Because in the past, artists weren't getting big fees, but now the fees are getting really, really big, on par with a lot of the fees, even in the northern music industry. So it is a good thing. There can be improvement in terms of the paid platforms, because there are lots of people that want to pay for music, but just not have the platforms where they can go pay. Not many Africans have credit cards.
This suggests that while Africans are increasingly spending their money to buy music from digital platforms, piracy might decrease even further if payment methods changed to incorporate those that are used in the continent, like M-Pesa, cell phone banking, and others. It's now official that the State of the Nation address will take place tomorrow evening.
I have therefore come to the decision to resign.
South Africa reacts to Jacob Zuma's resignation. A new dawn as the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to be sworn in as the country's new head of state. Hello and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Shante Yankees coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. A lot coming up between now and 12 p.m. in the last hour, including the latest reactions from the resignation of President Jacob Zuma, as well as your views and news from the continent and abroad. Your lead story this hour: in the latest developments regarding the country's transition into new leadership, we can now confirm that the State of the Nation address will go place tomorrow evening. The Joint Programming Committee of Parliament unanimously agreed on the event details this morning. It has also agreed that the State of the Nation debate and the reply to SONA will take place next week, Monday and Tuesday, as was proposed by ANC Chief Whip Jackson Tembu. The new president, who is expected to be sworn in this afternoon, will address the nation tomorrow. The Joint Programme Committee co-chairperson Tandi Modise gave the final endorsement. Well, former President Jacob Zuma has avoided a motion of no confidence in Parliament by resigning as head of state last night. Zuma is the second consecutive ANC president to resign as head of state after former President Thabo Mbeki stepped down in 2008. Zuma barely made the 48-hour deadline set by the ANC for him to resign, taking to the podium at the Union Buildings in Pretoria for the last time as head of state last night.
I've served in my capacity as President of the Republic of South Africa within the prism of our much acclaimed Constitution, whose foundational values are fully subscribed to. I understand fully that while I serve at the pleasure of my party, the ANC, the door through which I officially came to serve the people of South Africa is the National Assembly. without which no political party can impose its candidate on the electorate, no matter how popular. This constitutional line between party and state is often forgotten in the usual business of party political contestations. As we fight our own battles in the corridors of political power and sometimes serving the very interests of the oppressors of yesterday, who joyfully celebrate as we lynch one another, we often forget the citizens on whose behalf we create a better life. We tend to place the political party above the supreme law of the country, which is the rule book of the country's political engagement. I do not make this reference because I am above reproach, nor do I wish to proclaim that in understanding my political responsibilities, I have been the epitome of perfection. If truth be told, none of us are. It is now public knowledge that the National Executive Committee of the ANC resolved to recall me as the President of the Republic. The ANC should never be divided in my name. I have therefore come to the decision to resign as President of the Republic with immediate effect.
Well, continuing to give you more reaction on President Jacob Zuma's resignation from across the country, we now go live to Nkandla, where our reporter Ayanda Mhlogo is standing by. Very good morning to you, Ayanda. Essentially, what is the mood like in Nkandla this morning?
A very good morning to you. I do apologize. It is a bit noisy here behind us, as you possibly will see. Just a small group of ANC members from early this morning arriving here outside President Jacob Zuma's residence here in Nkandla. Of course, reacting to that news of President Jacob Zuma's resignation last night. This is his home province behind us, although we cannot see, but we are just outside the entrance to President Jacob Zuma's home, where one guesses once he has left the union buildings, President Zuma comes back here to Nkandla. Born here in this area, 1942, born and bred here. This has been his home province, and although that he has been away from this area due to his political commitments for many years, but after exile and when he was of course imprisoned, but this is President Jacob Zuma's home, and when he came back starting to work as MEC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, making his way up through the positions that he's occupied within the ANC and the government. When he was, of course, president, would know that whenever he had the chance during the holidays, this was his home, and this is where President Jacob Zuma would spend most of his time. He's got a lot of love and support from the people of Nkandla, and as you can see today, the people have come out, many upset about his resignation, had hoped and wanting to see President Jacob Zuma finishing his term, which would have ended next year. I'm now joined by the chairperson of the ANC sub-region here in Nkandla. Bahle Sibiya, asibonga kakhulu bathe isikhathi sakho namhlanje niphumile njengamalungu ANC. Ngiyacabanga ukuthi ninovu noma abanye bebeshilo baphatheka kabi into eyenzekile ukuthi umongameli uZuma asule esikhundleni.
Yebo, sanibona mama. Khona siphatheke kabi ngoba besingakakulindeli ukuthi upresident emehle esikhundleni term of office engakayiqedi. But as much as kunjalo we welcome the decision ye-ANC as a upper structure se-ANC and yona ANC decidayo between the conferences. So we welcome the decision of the ANC, and the President Izolo, he made a statement to resign, and the President say support the decision to resign as much as support ANC. So today is a new day. Today Sizoti Sfunuboni ANC United even a program you unite ANC from lower structures to upper structures, so that sizobhekana exactly nento ANC esungulele yona ukushintsha impilo zabantu.
Bahle nje bathi sinawe nje bazwile abanye bethi sidiniwe okungenzeka ukuthi baphatheke kabi abantu namalungu ANC ngaso lesi sinqumo njengabaholi manje sinibekele lo msebenzi ukuthi nihambele amagatsha onke niwachazele amagatsha ngesinqumo esithathwe ubuholi beANC.
Yebo kunjalo, njengoba silana nje sizokhombisa ukuthi ANC siyayisupporta i-decision ye-ANC and sizophuma sitshene ilunga nelunga le-ANC nomphakathi ovotela i-ANC kakhulukazi la eNkandla ukuthi i-ANC yaphila akunakele lutho. Njengamanje into ebaluleke kakhulu ukuthi sibhekane nenselelo ikakhulukazi ezi-affecta umphakathi wakithi ophuwa. So njengamanje into ezoyenza ukuqhubekela phambili nomzabalazo. President Zuma njengoba nje izolo resignile, sifisa ukuthi mayifika la eNkandla simsebenzise ikakhulukazi kwinto ebevele yenza yokushintsha impilo zabantu ukuthi aqhubeke ashintshe impilo zabantu ebamisene ne-leadership ye-ANC NEC.
Bahle sibonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho. Ngiyazi ukuthi usakhona namalungu e-ANC sizaqhubeka ukuthi sikhulume nani, mhlawumbe bazofika nabanye abantu balindele ukuthi nizobe ninabo namhlanje. Again, maybe let me just now see if we can bring in the former councillor, one of the former councillors here in Nkandla, somebody who has also worked very closely with President Jacob Zuma. Asibonga baba isikhathi sakho. Mhlawumbe ke sisathi ubaba khansela usebenzile nomongameli uJacob Zuma, abantu baseNkandla bebekhulu ukuthi bamthanda kanjani nentuthuko ayilethile la endaweni yaseNkandla. Mhlawumbe usixoxele nje ngawo nobudlelwano obunawo namongameli Zuma.
Ubudlelwano babo noPresident Zuma bekuyilobby anabo nayo wonke umuntu wase-South Africa. Mina ke njengekhansela bengiyikhansela njengawo wonke amakhansela ase-South Africa, not ngoba ngingwala bengekho umehluko kuyikhansela lala nekhansela laseLimpopo noma lekhansela lase-Western Cape. Inhloso yethu biyodwa eyokuthi senzeni impilo zabantu zibe ngcono. Besikubona ke thina uPresident abekwenza ikakhulukazi njengami ngiyikhansela ngibonile ukuthi kuyasilekelela ukuthi sibe noPresident onjengoZuma elekelele impilo zabantu ezezimpilo zabantu zibe ngcono. Sibonile ke sisebenzile ke naye nje obusho nami ngiseduzane ngiyikhansela lapha khona noma ngabe kuthiwa bekunama challenges kodwa besithi bangabe sikwazi ukuthi sikhulume sithi siyabika kuPresident naye akwazi ukusondela eduzane nenkingeni zabantu.
Umongameli Zuma futhi ube umholi obefundise kakhulu ngokwezepolitiki. Kuningi nani enikufundile ngokwepolitiki kafushane?
Sikuningi sikufundile kuZuma ikakhulukazi njengowepolitiki njengobusho. Ikakhulu enye yezinto inhlonipho, idiscipline, ukuthi istructure esikhulu sika-ANC sibaluleke kakhulu. Asikwazi ukuthi siphikisane naso bangabe sithathiwe funa lesi support sihambe naso siphambili size ukuthi ANC be.
Baba angekmisa lapha. All right, we just leave it there for now. Of course, just getting some reaction from the people of Nkandla. We'll be here throughout the day. We hear that there is breaking news from Cape Town, so let's take things back to studio in Johannesburg.
Definitely, thank you very much. much, Ayanda. Well, with that news just coming in, Parliament has now confirmed that it has received Jacob Zuma's formal letter of resignation. For more, we are joined by our parliamentary reporter, Lucanyo Alata, who is joining us from Cape Town. A very good morning to you, Lucanyo. Give us the latest on the receiving of that formal letter from President Jacob Zuma.
Hi, Shante. Yes, indeed. News just breaking or coming out of the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly, Baleka Mbete, is that they have now officially received the letter of resignation from President Jacob Zuma. But joining me now to talk a little bit more about that is Moloto Mutapo, who is, of course, the spokesperson of Parliament. Mr. Mutapo, good morning, and thank you so very much for joining us. What time did the letter come in?
Well, we can't give a specific time, but we can indeed confirm that the letter arrived this morning, and the Speaker of the National Assembly has duly, as it is in terms of the rules, will be published in the journals of Parliament for the attention of the members of Parliament, and the Speaker of the National Assembly has indeed thanked the President for the service that he has rendered for the past 8 years to the people of South Africa, and wished him well.
If you can, could you maybe just quote us a line or two from what the letter says?
Well, I'm sure it will be made available because the journals of Parliament are public documents. I think you can be able to see for yourself, but it is the line that talks about the resignation, really. There is no details.
All right. Thank you very much for that. And then let's quickly then talk about the preparations that we see ongoing for the SONA State of the Nation address. How far are we in with preparations?
Well, you know that the State of the Nation address is a culmination of months of preparations, which started in 2017. So by the time the State of the Nation address was postponed last week, Parliament was ready. It was all systems go. The guests have already been invited. Everything has already been prepared. So with the announcement yesterday of the new date for the State of the Nation address, which is tomorrow at 7 o'clock, it is just a matter of final touches, and we are ready to go. The institution is ready for this big event on the calendar of not only Parliament but South Africa.
Right. And then the issue of this afternoon, can you just run us through exactly what the procedure will be once obviously the bells ring at about 5 to 2, the MPs are seated at 2 o'clock. What's the procedure from there on out?
Well, the procedure of voting, because you will remember that initially yesterday the program of Parliament this evening was supposed to be the consideration of a motion of no confidence. But with the developments of last night and the letter of the President of resignation now received by the Speaker of the National Assembly, that the sitting of this afternoon, the agenda has been changed now to deal with the election of the new president. So the procedure for the election, because you know that it is a sitting that is presided in terms of the Constitution by the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice has set this date for this purpose. So the procedure will be that which is approved by the Chief Justice himself, and it generally, as we know it, it will be an opportunity will be given to the House for the nomination of the candidate for the position of the President of the Republic of South Africa, and the floor will be opened and the nomination will take place. If there's only one nomination, it will be regarded as the decision of the House, and if there is more than one nomination, two nominations or so, it will then go into the voting through a secret ballot.
All right. Mr. Mutapo, thank you very much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Thank you. That was Moloto Mutapo, who is, of course, the spokesperson of Parliament, just running, firstly, officially confirming that Parliament, or at least the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly, has indeed received the official letter of resignation from President Jacob Zuma, and then also running us through, the procedure as to what is likely to take place inside the National Assembly this afternoon when the House sits to elect a new president. I can also just quickly tell you, Shante, that indeed the preparations for the State of the Nation are now in full swing. I mean, I'm just asking my cameraman to pan around, then you can see there for yourself that, you know, this morning none of the scaffolding was here. We can see that these guys are walking, building the scaffoldings. This is where the media will all be situated tomorrow afternoon. See a good friend of mine, Adam Asmal, over there. Obviously just getting ready, you know, for the State of the Nation. And if you can pan a little bit more to the left, Sihle, there you will see that at least the South African Police Services is also here, just making sure that everything is as they should be. Obviously, there's a lot more security in and around Parliament today, and you know, we can see that everything is moving. It's the stairs in front of the National Assembly, where the new president is likely to then take the salute from the National Guard. That's going up. You know, the red carpet is of course still missing, but at least we know that now Parliament is back in full swing, and we also now know that indeed the National Assembly has received the speaker, or at least the Speaker of the National Assembly has now received the letter of resignation from President Jacob Zuma. From us in Parliament, for the time being, it's over to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Lukhanya Qalata, for SABC News in Cape Town. Well, political analyst Sanusha Naidu is now joining us via Skype to give us her reaction on Zuma's resignation. Very good morning to you, Sanusha. Of course, speaking to you yesterday morning, we're still speculating as to whether former President Jacob Zuma was actually going to resign, and then hearing that news late last night, going well into the morning, in fact, that he has resigned. What essentially is your initial reaction?
Good morning to you, Shanti. I mean, I think it was one of awe, surprise. I felt like I was watching a Fast and Furious movie and a Game of Thrones all at once. So in a sense, I think this was a typical hallmark of President Jacob Zuma, to leave it right until the 12th hour, come out and say he's resigning, and then basically make the statement late in the evening, where I suspect some people didn't even know he resigned until they woke up this morning. But I suspect this is also part of the fact that he was, whilst digging in his heels and trying to find reasons as to why he should not take the option of the recall and resign, I think there has been definite issues that he could not necessarily shy away from. One of it being is that, did he want to actually be removed from Parliament on a motion that was brought by the EFF, which has been a thorn in his side, which has made it its clarion call to remove President Zuma from office as part of its political campaign as a political party in 2014. Continued to do so, and I think that became a big. That would definitely have been something that would have been in his mind, and perhaps even the advisors, and even perhaps Cyril Ramaphosa would have actually said to now who we now call former President Zuma, because the letter has been lodged, that do you want to actually go with the authority of your party, or do you want to go at the behest of a political party that was formed as a result of their ousting from the ANC? And I think these are a number of things that need to be looked at. But right now we have to ready ourselves for the State of the Nation address. We have to make sure that there is also the Chief Justice that's going to swear in the new president, and there's a lot that needs to be done. So I think we've overcome one part of it, but we still have a lot more to think about in going forward, both in terms of Cyril Ramaphosa, the State of the Nation address and what that's going to entail, and of course the budget speech next week.
Definitely, and speaking about that, and so being tomorrow, what essentially can we expect?
Well, I think this State of the Nation address is going to be one that's going to try and bring about heal the cleavages. Obviously, the State of the Nation address probably, in my opinion, has already been prepared by Cyril Ramaphosa. I think these were all a matter of filling in the blocks and filling in the spaces. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be one that's going to be much more pragmatic. It's not going to be one that's going to check and tick boxes. I think it's going to try and create a roadmap that is pragmatic for the country and talk about the serious issues around what is this year about. It's about socioeconomic growth, it's about growth in itself, and it's about unemployment and how are we going to achieve that.
Now, how do you think the resignation is going to impact the economy? Having a look at post-ANC NEC and seeing Cyril Ramaphosa being elected as ANC president, how are we expecting the markets to respond?
Well, we saw up until last night, the markets were very all indications that the currency was doing fairly well against major currencies. But again, I think you can't just go on a particular kind of boom. Markets are very long-term, and depending on what is said tomorrow, but I think it's more about how the markets would react to the budget speech next week and what kind of issues we see come out there. Questions around the land issue, questions around economic transformation, etc. But I think in itself, the market has been very kind to Cyril Ramaphosa, considering, endeavors he played to the platform of the market. Whenever there was some kind of domestic issue, whether it was the ESCOM board that was changed, the question about the Hawks raid on the Gupta compound in Saxon World, the markets have responded positively. But one of the bigger things that we have to deal with now is getting back our credit status and moving it from junk to non-junk status. And that's the bigger challenge, because we can have all of these things in place, but we need to see what implementation on policy takes place.
Definitely. Thank you very much for joining us here via Skype. Of course, political analyst Sanusha Naidu speaking on the reaction of President Jacob Zuma's resignation, as well as that announcement that SONA is set to take place tomorrow by the newly sworn-in president. For now, though, let's take a short break. Before we take a break, actually, let's have a look at our poll that we're running this morning. Do you think that Cyril Ramaphosa will be the change that South Africa needs, with just over 1,400 votes that have come in? Let's have a look at some of the reaction and the comments coming in on our poll this morning. SABC Newsroom. Well, Michael says, nothing different. The poor will still be poor. Those living in shacks will be living in them. The unemployed will still be unemployed. The ANC has been in power since 1994. So what's going to change under Cyril Ramaphosa that Mandela, Mbeki and Zuma couldn't do? They are all puppets. Very strong views coming in from Michael. Mandile says Ramaphosa to be elected as president of the country, rooting out corruption and mismanagement, and as well as reshuffling the cabinet. The ANC downfall at Zuma Power SA says they were quick to push Zuma to resign so that Cyril Ramaphosa can give them positions in his new cabinet. The power-hungry ANC NEC. The ANC have just dumped us in KZN. Chow, we'll see you in the 2019 elections. This one coming in from Andile. Well, for me, honestly, I don't think there will be positive change. He might bring, Cyril Ramaphosa has his scandals too. And for me, no one will lead us into the exact way we wish. They are all corrupt. Wolf in a sheep's cloth. And with that being said, let's take a short break here on SABC Newsroom. Do stay tuned.
Well, today we discuss the general practitioner or GP.
So the quality of the doctors coming through our medical schools is excellent.
Your GP is your family doctor. Your GP is your first point of care.
Who determines how much a consultation fee should be?
We set up networks of general practitioners, and one of the conditions of the network was to agree to charge a certain fee.
Specialists are specialists. We can't take away their role. We can't take away what they do for each patient in their disease entity.
Our specialist colleagues as well don't appreciate patients coming straight off the street, as it were, to see them. They're highly trained.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living, catch Health Talk every Saturday from 9 to 10.
Welcome back to SABC Newsroom. Well, continuing with the reactions on the resignation of President Jacob Zuma, we were earlier joined in studio by ANC Veterans League's President, Dr. Snuki Zikalala, and political analyst, Professor Stephen Friedman.
Started this campaign. We started our campaign in terms of building confidence amongst the masses. We have said that we are dealing with corruption. We have seen what the Hawks are doing. We're saying that all parastatals have to be restructured. We are saying that the economy must start ticking. We're building confidence amongst investors. And so I think in that way, once you create stability within the country itself, once you create stability amongst investors, once you create stability, especially in society, and we as ANC, we are saying we're prepared to say we're prepared to self-correct. We have to self-correct and say to society, go back to society and say, we apologize, we've made mistakes. We want you to give us another chance to govern on your behalf. Definitely society will pardon us. As long as society sees that those who are responsible for this anarchy, for this mass looting, are taken behind bars. And it should happen, and it should happen soon.
Professor, is Cyril Ramaphosa the man for this job? Or has, for the lack of a better word, the dislike of President Jacob Zuma just been so strong that, you know, South Africans and the people just wanted him out?
I think South Africans really, and I read this the other day, I think South Africans really need to get over this obsession with particular individuals. Okay. Cyril Ramaphosa is president of the ANC. He will soon be president of the country. He doesn't run things on his own. He's part of a group of people. He's part of he's got allies, etc. The question is not Cyril Ramaphosa. The question is, will the new leadership of the ANC, which yes is led by Cyril Ramaphosa, rise to the challenges that we talk at the moment? People are not going to vote for the ANC in 2019 simply because Cyril Ramaphosa has replaced Jacob Zuma. They will vote for the ANC in 2019 if the kind of issues that Dr. Zikalala is talking about are actually addressed. If they feel, to me it goes beyond, yes, it is important to put behind bars people who've done wrong, but I think it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that because it means reaching out to millions of South Africans who are excluded from the economy and saying to them, we have a plan, we want to bring you into the economy, we want you to be part of South Africa's economy, and we want you to be productive citizens. I think if the ANC can show that it's listening to people at the grassroots, the question of whether individual X or individual Y is president of the country is secondary. The issue is, what is the government doing about the problems of real South Africans?
Your comment, Doctor?
Yeah, well, I fully agree with what Professor Stephen Friedman is saying. What is important for us as ANC is to unite society, is to unite ANC, and to make sure that we win back the lost moral ground that we had before. And definitely, with the leadership of Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, we will be able to convince society that the ANC is on its renewal path.
Well, continuing on reaction, we are joined from our Sea Point studio by Lindsay Marsdorp, who is the BLF spokesperson. We were also supposed to be joined in studio by an EFF Student Council representative, the spokesperson there, Mangaliso Sambo, but unfortunately he's not answering his phone, and we will, however, nevertheless continue to conduct the interview. Very good morning to you, Lindsay. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Essentially, what do you make of the president announcing his resignation late last night?
Good morning and hi to the viewers too. As BLF, we thank President Zuma for his courage and his response in terms of championing radical economic transformation. We thank him for giving us, the student populace, and the whole country free education. We thank President Zuma for going against white monopoly capital and fighting the imperialist coup agenda until the end. We thank President Zuma for continuously being loyal to the struggle, the black liberation struggle, and remembering that he's the first president in the post-94, in the totality of the South African existence, to say that the land must be returned to the black population. So we thank him for this. He remains a beacon of hope for us. He falls into the echelons of Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, and so on. And as BLF, we say that we will continue to champion radical economic transformation. Radical economic transformation is at home in BLF. We recognize that the ruling party, the ANC, has decided to position itself, as it is historically done, as the defender of white monopoly capital. We recognize that we are in basically a one-party state where all political parties at the moment in Parliament have gravitated or exist under one line of ideology. That means they defend the status quo, which is South Africa as a settler colonial state. And so in totality, we as BLF, we thank the President, Jacob Zuma, for his courage, for his fight, and for being willing to fight until the bitter end. We are thankful as the Black First, Land First movement.
Now, of course, you've mentioned that you are happy with the radical economic transformation that you have been able to push forward through under the admin of President or former President Jacob Zuma. Do you think that this transition now is going to change with the new leadership that is about to step in?
I mean, it goes without saying that Cyril Ramaphosa is the murderer of workers in Marikana. He is the head of, or the deployee of capital. He is a deployee of Johan Rupert and the Oppenheimers. He's been crafted and he's been created to be the sellout that he is. He is the champion of what they call the New Deal, and the New Deal is basically a returning to the old deal, which is the status quo of white monopoly capital and its hegemonic power over the South African economic sphere. So the banking system will not be changed. For students, we need to fear that the policy of free education will now be reversed. We must be able to recognize also that Cyril Ramaphosa imposed a living wage that is substandard. And at the same time, he was guilty and needed to change his policies even within McDonald's, which was below the minimum, the living wage the minimum wage that he put forward in November. He's an evil person that has sold out our country historically through CODESA. He's an evil person who in post-94 has committed the atrocities he has done in Marikana by calling for the death of people who have simply wanted the ability to feed themselves through the mining industry, the mines that actually belong to our people. So we must expect, as a revolutionary movement that we are, who is hell-bent on taking back the land for the benefit of the black population of this country, that we will experience, as part of this black collective, the indignation and the hatred of Cyril Ramaphosa that he has displayed in Marikana. We'll experience that. And we will crush us. I mean, a case in point is just at Lutuli House recently, where people bearing his name and people bearing his ideas decided to kick an elderly woman who was simply there to share her views and the views of Black First, Land First movement, that we can't continue to replace presidents, and particular president like President Jacob Zuma. A mother who simply wanted to say, I would like to enjoy the land and the benefits of this country. A mother who says, radical economic transformation now. But the deployees of Cyril Ramaphosa, they showed us the character of the man, the character of Marikana, the Marikana man, and when they kicked that mother, they basically kicked out radical economic transformation. Cyril Ramaphosa, in that moment, kicks out radical economic transformation, and he basically shows us that there's no place for the black, poor, landless majority in his mind and in his ideals. He only has space for the likes of Johan Rupert, for the likes of the Oppenheimers, for the Visas. He's only got space to protect the likes of Steinhoff, and he will continue to ensure that our economy serves an elite few and works in the interests of the black elite.
All right, Lindsay, just because of time, unfortunately, I am going to have to interrupt you just as before we head into an ad break. Of course, Lindsay Maasdorp, the BLF spokesperson, giving their views on the new leadership as well as the newly or said to be newly sworn in President Cyril Ramaphosa. Of course, not very happy with him. We'll take a short break here on SABC Newsroom. More when we come back.
A warm welcome to one of your favorite weekly review analysis programs, Media Monitor.
So let's look at the race itself.
It's just becoming a personality contest where people just want somebody to guard their own vested interest. And I feel that the country is at a point now where we need some sort of change.
It is ANC policy that they will have to implement. We fairly know the direction the ANC wants to take. As a leader, you have to implement. So what was it like on the ground in Kenya?
Well, the country is divided. The country is very divided.
I think within the country, for me, the one person that I criticize severely, and I'm not very happy with his approach, is Raila Odinga, with him pulling out.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor and catch on analysts unpacking top stories every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back to SABC Newsroom. While Jacob Zuma's second term as head of state was characterized by a torrid relationship with the opposition and the National Assembly, the breakdown in relations is largely attributed to the 2014 arrival of a new cohort of MPs representing the economic freedom fighters, led by Zuma's former ally and ANC Youth League President Julius Malema. A report by then Public Protector Thuli Madonsela, which recommended that the president pay back state money illegally used to upgrade his private Nkandla home, would prove to be the biggest bone of contention. Let's have a look.
You come with meandos, I answer with meandos. Easy. Ask the question, I will answer the question.
This comment in November 2017 was among the last Jacob Zuma made in the National Assembly as head of state. By then, he had endured just over 3 years of humiliation and ridicule in the House. It all started one August afternoon in 2014, the first time he answered questions in the National Assembly following the ANC's election victory earlier that year. The newly elected EFF refused to let him speak. Instead, they demanded that Zuma pay back the money as recommended in the Public Protector's Nkandla report.
Date and time. You won't remove us. We're not going anywhere. Pay back the money. Pay back the money. Pay back.
Zuma would not address the House again that year. When he eventually did in 2015.
For more breaking news for you this hour, the City of Cape Town Speaker has declined to grant Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille a secret ballot. This as she is facing a vote of no confidence during a special sitting of the City Council. She faces allegations of maladministration and corruption, which she has denied. Let's cross now live to Cape Town.
But the federal executive of the DA is calling the shots. Water tenders worth billions and the freeway precinct projects that are up for grabs, they are suitable for your white friends. Patricia must be out of the way.
Speaker, point of order. Councillor, continue.
Patricia is wanted to be out of the way because she is seen as ruining things and preventing white liberals from looting. In her absence, Madam Mayor, we have warned you that these liberals were just using you, or they used you with fellow Africans on the other side to gather votes in our township areas and strongholds. And your response, unfortunately, was shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Voters gave us 66.6%. Where is the 66% now? They are supposed to be here to protect you from these vultures, and look at them as they turn red, others are turning maroon, because they see that their thing is not arriving. As the ANC, we refuse to be used by all of you. You are unfortunately on your own. You must continue to stab each other in the back, betray each other, and do whatever. You all lack a backbone, and you deserve each other. Shame, black woman, you are on your own. Politics are not for sissies, as you always told us. Others amongst you, shame, can't wait to take over and become MACO members, forgetting that you are still the same Democratic Alliance that is corrupt, and we won't get tired. We will continue to expose each and every one of you. You are all rotten, corrupt to the core. In fact, you should call a motion of no confidence in yourselves, all of you. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, whoever that survives here, watch out, we are coming for you too. The DA remains our core business, and we therefore, in totality, Mr. Speaker, want accountability. The Democratic Alliance must account not one individual. Therefore, as the ANC will reject the motion. Thank you.
Speaker.
Councillor Arnold.
Speaker.
Councillor Arnold.
Speaker.
No, Councillor. Councillor
I'm looking for that.
Councillor Arnold, please.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much through you. Councillor Boy, you must not be used and captured by evil forces in the devil's alliance. And I know where you're going to sit. You're going to sit on a dry seat and not on a MACO seat that was promised to you. Chairperson, the residents of Cape Town has lost confidence in the Day Zero Alliance government, who are now fighting and queuing for positions. While you are fighting over positions, communities are living in a state of indignity and congestion. Residents, especially those living in informal settlements and backyards, must give you in 2019 0 votes because you failed to change their inhumane living conditions. Mr. Speaker, the motion before us today is a clear indication that the Day Zero Alliance is steering their so-called flagship municipality down the sewer pipes. You claim to be the party of good governance and is now being caught with your pens down. Mismanagement, tender irregularities, jobs for pals, contracts for friends, and power struggles is now the order of the day under your stewardship. Today we ask the people of Cape Town to listen to the voices.
Well, we break up out of that just to wrap up with Jacob Zuma's resignation analysis with the Section 27's Mark Hayward. Very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Essentially, it's been a whirlwind. We're just talking about it off air of these past couple of days and then the past few hours. Essentially, what has the reaction been?
Well, I think the reaction is overwhelmingly positive. You know, speaking from the side of civil society, everybody says, thank God that this is over. You know, we've been so used to mismanagement, to corruption. We've seen the consequences of that on services like health services, on basic education. And it was becoming intolerable for people. So there's a huge sigh of relief. But I think that as much as there's a huge sigh of relief, we all understand that the reconstruction and the rebuilding is what has to start literally from today.
Let's just have a look at an overview of President Jacob Zuma's administration. As much as it has been marred by a state capture and huge media pressure and political pressure we've seen, there were other instances where, you know, he has been hailed to the ARV treatment that he's been able to roll out and the masses thereof, specifically in KZN.
Well, I think that for the most part his tenure as president has been very bad. You know, in my work on a day-to-day basis, I witness what happens to our basic education. I was in Limpopo last week dealing with the story of the little boy who drowned in a pit toilet. I've spent weeks in the Life Esidimeni arbitration dealing with the deaths of 144 people. You can't put all of that directly at the door of Jacob Zuma, but you can put it at the door of a president who's created a culture of impunity and a callousness often towards the lives of the poor, particularly amongst ministers and MECs who fall directly underneath him. And I think that's what we want from Cyril Ramaphosa as president, is to set a different tone, to be intolerant of corruption, intolerant of mediocrity, intolerant of a lack of concern for poor people's lives. The only thing you can say where there has really been progress, but I don't put this down to Jacob Zuma, is, as you say, around HIV and AIDS and the rollout of the antiretroviral treatment program. And for that, I think you have to credit Minister Motsoaledi for his passion, and organizations like the Treatment Action Campaign, which have just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure that that program reaches everybody who needs it.
Now, apart from the political pressure that the administration has seen specifically over the past year, and Jacob Zuma also mentioning that himself in 2017, can you elaborate on the roles that social and civil society movements have played on now the resignation of the president?
Well, honestly, I think that it is civil society movements that made it so that the ANC had to remove Jacob Zuma. I think particularly in the course of last year, 2017, beginning perhaps 2016 at the time of the firing, the charging of Pravin Gordhan, you know, through organizations like Save South Africa, through Corruption Watch, through Section 27, through Right to Know, civil society organizations have mobilized people, they have brought information before the public, and they have kept up a constant pressure to say that we deserve something better. And I think most importantly, they've kept the connection between mismanagement and corruption and state capture and the consequences on the poorest of the poor in our country.
And just briefly, before we wrap it up, as Jacob Zuma prepares to leave office officially today, what sort of message would you want to give out to South Africans as a whole?
Well, I would say now is not the time to relax. It's not the time to be complacent. You know, we will have a better president, but please don't make a mistake of giving all of your trust away to the president. We have to work with the government, but we have to be critical of the government. We have to continue to make demands of the government, and we have to continue to remind the government that ours is a constitution that promises social justice to people, and we must achieve that vision of social justice for people.
Definitely. Thank you very much for joining us in studio this morning, Section 27's Mark Hayward. Of course, let's take you down now memory lane on the political career of former President Jacob Zuma.
South Africa is in need of a frank dialogue about the state of our nation. My name is Omkhopotse JJ Tabane. Join me on Frankly Speaking every Sunday at 8:30. Come now, let's talk frankly.
Teaching microbiology differently.
They actually look at questions such as what is life, using microorganisms